simple. Yeah, because
Okay, we'll call this regular meeting to order, November 16th, 2016, 6 p.m. Pat, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? Salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pat. Roll call. Okay. So we'll take board announcements and put them down at the end, and department announcements at the end. That leaves us to public comment. This is a time period where anyone could talk about anything for about 3 minutes that is not on the agenda. So this is open forum, and if you'd like to speak about anything, we can't take any action on it or take any vote on it, but we got open ears. No? Okay, that was easy. We'll close the forum, and we'll move on to consent agenda. And the acknowledgement of public hearing, certification of posting, and the adoption of action items and the regular agenda. Do I have a motion for consent?
If there's no discussion, Mr. Chair, I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, moving on. The agenda is going to be changed a little tonight. We're going to take item 1 in order, but item 3, the minor subdivision 1240-16 will be moved up to second place, and the UP 1151-16 will be in third place. And then we will take discussions on long-range growth as last. So we'll blow through the first items and get right to the workshop. So A.R. Wilson Reclamation Plan, you got that? Run with it.
Thank you, Commissioners. Robert Rivera, Associate Planner here. Before I begin and pass it off to our consultant with Benchmark Resources, who is more familiar with the Reclamation Plan Amendment procedures, I'd like to read in an additional condition to the staff report. and you all have a copy, reading number 4, slope stability. To ensure that the final slope configurations are left in a stable condition, a slope stability analysis shall be prepared by appropriate licensed professional at the time of mine closure to aid the county in annually determining the adequacy of the financial assurance estimate phase related to grading costs required for slope reclamation. The operator shall conduct an annual review of the final slopes and temporary slopes requiring treatment to meet a minimal overall slope factor of safety 1. The slope requirements to achieve a factor of safety 1 will be to a defined standard established by a qualified professional. And then with that, I'd like to introduce Dave Brown from Benchmark Resources.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dave Brown. I'm a consultant under contract to the county, so I'm here as an extension of your staff under a contract approved by the Board of Supervisors. Our firm has an expertise in mining as a land use, and so we have been under contract with San Benito County for a number of years, I think going back to at least 2007, to assist in the annual inspections that are required under the Surface Mining Reclamation Act. And then over the last 3 years, some things that have come about as a part of state review have involved us in assisting the county staff in processing some of these matters related to the planning of reclamation. And I'll explain some of that. I guess the first question I might have of the commission, I'm not sure, it's been a while since I've been in front of you, and I don't know how many mining-related matters you've had in recent years, but I'm getting a shake of the head. So I have about a 10, 12-minute PowerPoint that'll explain this particular project, but I should perhaps then first explain that in California, you need two things for a surface mine in terms of a land use entitlements. You need the right to mine, essentially, which comes from a vested right or a conditional use permit, typically. And then since 1976, you need a reclamation plan, and that came about as the Surface Mining and Reclamation Act that was approved in 1976, and it was based on federal coal mining regulation, and so that model was taken for surface mines in California. And so reclamation plans were required, and a reclamation plan is a plan for the second use, primarily for the property, such that we don't have areas that become unusable as a result of mining. It's recognized that mining, unlike other land uses, when you approve a residential development or really any other urban type of use, you don't think about the fact that that will go away someday. But mines are different because eventually the mineral resource will be exhausted, and that property then will be adapted to some other use. So that's what SMERA fundamentally required, is that the land use that would follow mining was thought about and planned for such that you could then adapt the mining operation and its reclamation as you progressed for that second land use. That'll become important as I talk through what we're doing here. So I'm going to talk about the proposed project. It's a discretionary matter and consideration. It'll help to review a little bit of background, how we got here, what's going on with the State Office of Mine Reclamation and their review and input with the county. The Office of Mine Reclamation is an office that was set up in 1983, and their role was really to provide technical assistance to counties and cities all over the state that have mines in their jurisdiction, because it was recognized that mines are not a common land use. And getting a shake of the head tells me that, because you see other matters come through the Planning Commission all the time, but mines are more rare. You have, I think, 16 active operations in this county compared to all the other land uses. And so it was recognized that staff at lead agencies might need some assistance in technical matters surrounding mining, and so that's what the role of the Office of Mine Reclamation was intended for. I'll talk briefly about CEQA compliance that comes out of your staff report, the proposed project, which is really consolidating this reclamation plan, and then the conditions of approval. So I'll try and get through this quickly, and if I'm going too fast, slow me down with any questions. So the project in this case is an amendment to the approved reclamation plan. That's that second discretionary entitlement I talked about since 1976. And in this case, the project is limited to updating a boundary that encompasses the property where mining occurs. Because since 1976, you're obligated to have this plan as a mine operator that includes all of your activities surrounding mining such that they are reclaimed once that mine is completed and the mineral resources exhausted. Background, the location, existing conditions, and prior approvals for this operation. So the Wilson Quarry began its life as the Logan Quarry, approved in 1983 in its reclamation plan. The quarry has actually been there since 1895, and so it's one of those mines that it was a pre-existing land use, pre-existing zoning anywhere in this state, and let's see if I have a cursor here. I do. So the quarry is located here, and this extension to the south, I'll show you in a moment, is under a use permit. So the existing conditions, Wilson Quarry, there's an industrial zoned land here where the majority of materials are railed out by railroad. And then there's a conveyor that goes to this southern property here where overburden, which is silts and fines, they're non-marketable materials. All mines have that as a result of the crushing and sorting process, and that's where these are disposed here. This is what the quarry looks like from the northeast, looking southwest. And this is what the overburden area, what goes on there, where those silts and fines are placed, they're compacted, and then leveled out to a final configuration, and then ultimately reseeded and planted as part of the reclamation plan that was for that property. This is what the original 1980 reclamation plan looked like. It was a concept for the property. This was referred to as the Brigantino site, or we refer to it now as the overburden site. That was conceptual at that time. This was the reclamation plan for the Wilson Quarry, a concept for the land use and the various components of the quarry at that time. A couple of things will be important here as we go through is this was an area of overburden that was placed adjacent to the quarry prior to the permitting of that southern overburden site at the Brigantino. And then another area that will be important as we go through this to talk about, where's my cursor, is this northern limit here, this boundary of the quarry excavation area. This is the plan that was approved in 1983 then, the footprint for that overburden area to the south that I talked about. This was approved as a reclamation, as a use permit, because that property was not part of the vested quarry property. The vested rights for the quarry were affirmed by the Board of Supervisors in 1981. This property is under a use permit, separately permitted, and there was a reclamation plan amendment for the other drawings that I just showed you, approved for this in 1983. In the late 2000s, about 2007, 2008, the Office of Mine Reclamation began a program to go out and actually touch base with lead agencies all over the state, as well as to look at their own records. And they came up with a program, essentially it was an audit, looking at how lead agencies were administering their SMERA compliance program. So they would look through lead agency files, look through their own records, and go through a number of data checks, as well as go visit the mine sites, look at the approved reclamation plan. As a result of that, they would raise a number of questions, float some talking points back and forth with the county. 80% of it was typically records that were missing at the state level or lost, and they were filling those. And then they would come back with some questions surrounding some of the quarries and their compliance with their approved reclamation plan. San Benito County fared very well as a result of all of that, but there were a few follow-up items, and three of those were focused on the Wilson quarry. Some of these, as a result, you'll see they're a matter of interpretation of what's come over the years, recognizing that we're looking at these now, state staff is looking at these 36 years later after the reclamation plan was approved. And the way that we look at these things from a land use planning standpoint in 2016 is a little different than things were done in 1980. Plans are a little different. There's a lot more text in reclamation plans today. But they raised three issues. One was they raised a question about the north high wall and the angle of that slope and whether or not it met the reclaimed condition. The second issue here, the second bullet, was a slope failure that was noted on the south side of the quarry. SMERA does not require that mine operations mine to a reclaimed slope. You can mine to whatever slope angle you want as an active slope and then lay those back to meet your reclamation angles, and that's what that second bullet, I think, from Granite Rock's perspective really was. Nevertheless, it was pointed out because of these boundary issues that I'm going to talk about. So they included some Google Earth photos of that north slope and its condition. There's what that north slope looks like, and they were questioning whether or not all pieces of this slope were in a reclaimed condition. For the most part, Granite Rock mines to its reclaimed angles according to the reclamation plan. This is the southern slope, the area they were pointing out, and this is what they were referring to in the slope's instability, where they had some material slough at that southern slope. The third issue that they raised is there's an overburden fill area that I pointed out in that first plan where, I should go back to that for just a second. Right. We're talking about this area here, this old overburden fill area, where they said and here it is, where the comment was that there were mining activities that were occurring outside of that polygon. That yellow line reflects what I just showed you on that other map, and they were pointing out the fact that there's this road here, for example, that doesn't fall within the boundaries of the reclamation plan. All of this area was actually disturbed ground historically since 1895. The mine had been using those areas, placing overburden and so forth there, but the requirements under SMERA are that anything prior to 1976, if it's not reactivated or actively operated on it as of 1986 and after that, doesn't fall under the Surface Mining Reclamation Act. Essentially, those areas were grandfathered, and so these areas were not an active part of reclamation requirements for this quarry, but the active areas were. So some comments were submitted. I won't go through this other than the fact that the regulations surrounding SMERA and the statute surrounding what mine lands are and reclamation is haven't changed since the original language in 1976, but some of the interpretations have as time has gone on. So the concept now in modern context is that you have a boundary that surrounds all mining activities, and that is your commitment that you're taking reclamation responsibility for any surface mining activities that happen within that boundary. So we had some things then that needed to be updated in terms of moving these boundaries to capture all of those areas. So one of those is this north slope area, where Granite Rock, while they looked at it from a geotechnical standpoint and they said it probably meets the reclamation plan requirement, they were willing to lay that slope back, so there's no question about that. The second carrot there is to capture roads and other areas that I just showed you between those polygons, so all of those are included within a boundary. And then the third carrot there is to include other existing and planned disturbances. And so again, when we're looking at this in 2016, we wanted to make sure that we captured all of those boundaries, all of those areas where existing surface disturbance happens or where surface disturbance might happen in the future. And so we decided to go ahead and roll in all of those areas where surface disturbances had happened historically, because they could go in and reactivate those areas if need to, and you don't want to go through this public process of amending the reclamation plan any more often than you need to. County Code, as well as SMERA, expects that these things get updated, because SMERA actually requires lead agencies, it says shall approve reclamation plans, because we want all mines to be reclaimed in this state. So whereas mining is a discretionary activity, and this is a discretionary permit or reclamation plan, but still lead agencies shall approve reclamation plans under the law. So this project is an update and consolidation then of all those footprint areas. One thing I skipped over was when in 1993, when that overburden area, the Brigantino property, was approved, it was approved separately as a reclamation plan amendment, but one map combining all of those was never done. It's not required. That's the way things have been done all over the state over the years, but now there's more effort to consolidate these things into one map, and that's actually part of what's going on right now with some SMERA amendments that take place next year in 2017. From a CEQA standpoint, however, because the underlying activity of mining was approved since the vested right on the quarry and the use permit that you have already approved for the county, all this is doing is encompassing those areas under SMERA to say that wherever mine disturbance occurs, reclamation will occur. And so there's no additional surface mining activities approved as a result of this proposed boundary adjustment. Because of that, there are a couple of CEQA exemptions that apply, meaning you could not really have a significant environmental impact come out of a CEQA analysis for this. So we itemized a couple of exemptions that apply under CEQA in the staff report. And we have two conditions of approval. One that was actually suggested by the Office of Mine Reclamation in terms of monitoring that slope and giving updates to the county for purposes of financial assurance. So what the financial assurance is for is, since 1983, financial assurances for reclamation are required for all surface mines. And the point of that is that if an operation were to go bankrupt, for example, the state and the county would still want reclamation to be completed as per its approved plan, and yet we don't want that to be a public burden. So, but no public funds are to be expended for that. So what SMERA does is it requires that the mine operator post financial assurances, typically a bond, that then the state and the county have access to if the operator failed to complete reclamation. And those get updated every year. That's part of our annual inspection process when we go out and look at the mines and how they're performing relative to their approved reclamation plan. We also look at the financial assurance estimate. That's been retermed the FACE. I hate that acronym, but that is revised every year to adjust for any new surface disturbances or acreages reclaimed under SMERA. And so when this slope then now is going to be laid back, there will be a new estimate of the cost associated with that, and the financial assurance will be adjusted this next year. And so what OMR, the Office of Mine Reclamation's recommendation is get an assessment of that and get an update every year so that your financial assurance is accurate. There was another condition really that needed, the only other thing that needed to be modified as a result of that, because when the Board of Supervisors approved this reclamation plan, there was a concern about the visibility of the quarry that was raised, and so there are some redwoods that we put into your staff report. We did a visual analysis of that. There were some redwoods along that northern boundary, and when that slope is laid back, some of those will need to be removed. So we went out, looked at that again, and we modified this condition to retain the majority of the redwoods there. I think as a result of the analysis we looked at, to the normal casual observer, they won't be able to notice the difference when the few trees that are removed for the slope layback occur, but we wanted to retain the intent of this original condition, but modify it to accommodate this slope layback. I think I kept to my 10 to 12 minute commitment there.
Good job.
Questions? I'd be happy to answer anything.
Commission level, any questions?
So nothing's changing with respect to the use, the impact, the footprint of the company?
So one thing I keyed on in your presentation was that you made the statement that this is really just trying to wrap prior permits and maps into one and bundle them. But as far as the public is concerned, we are concerned, the operation of Granite Rock, is that changing?
Right.
Is it increasing? Is the footprint of the business changing? Is the impact to the environment different?
Yeah, so the answer is no. There's actually a map, and I have those documents, but that the Board of Supervisors approved the vested lands. And vesting for the quarry is a legal issue, and it goes by parcel. So it's actually to the extent of those parcels is where mining is authorized as a result of that vested use. And that's not changed as a result of then enforcing then the Surface Mining and Reclamation Act. It simply says any areas that you do disturb on that property, you're obligated to reclaim. And in terms of the CEQA issue related to that, there are very few issues if you think about it, and now you've sort of separated these issues. The authority to mine or under a vested right or the use permit, all those mining activities, the air emissions, everything else happens as a result of that mining activity. What environmental impacts come as a result of reclamation? There's very few, and actually there's a couple of court cases in point about that document that for the most part, all you're doing at the point you're reclaiming is perhaps putting back some soils and revegetating. And so we actually have our arms around the degree of activity associated with reclamation because we estimate those costs every year. And so in general, you're looking even for a large quarry like this, I didn't go through a description of what the reclamation components of this quarry, but the Wilson Quarry, the concept was it would probably be a water storage reservoir or a lake in the quarry. So there's very few things, those slopes that I showed you don't get revegetated, they don't get resoiled. That would be incompatible with a water land use like that. And so there's very few activities that would actually go on associated with reclamation. And then here we're looking at just the marginal change to those. So this slope layback, they'd be obligated to reclaim that additional marginal area, which I showed you in the staff report. If you look through those figures, it varies between 25 and 250 feet along that northern margin. So we're talking about sort of inconsequential issues in terms of CEQA, environmental impacts.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for your presentation and your time. Back to the planner.
All right, thank you. Staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission review the staff report and all attachments and certify the project exempt from CEQA. Staff further recommends that the Planning Commission, if it chooses, approve reclamation plan amendment to A.R. Wilson Quarry, California Mine ID 91350012.
With the staff changes previously stated.
The staff changes previously stated, yes.
So let's open it up to the public. Any speakers on this? Any speaker cards? No cards. No? Okay. We'll close it off and entertain a motion. With staff changes.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll move approval with the staff changes and note that it's exempt from CEQA.
Okay.
What was that, Pat? I couldn't hear
And
you.
note that it's exempt from CEQA.
Right. I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Now with all the findings and conditions of the
With findings and conditions.
Thank you, Barbara. Amended a motion? Can we amend the second?
Yes, I'm in the second.
Okay. So all in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Our next item will be the Hilden Minor Subdivision, MS 1240-16.
Good evening, again. Robert Rivera here, Associate Planner. Thank you for hearing me. So this is an item that was continued from the previous Planning Commission meeting on October 19th. It's an application for a minor subdivision by Mr. Tyler Hilden on Marks Drive and David's Drive within the Ridgemark community. Before I begin, planning would like to make changes to condition 5 and 6. You all have a copy. Sorry, mislabeled. The title's mislabeled, but before condition number 5, dedication of right-of-way, staff would like to read, prior to recordation of the parcel map, the applicant shall make the following irrevocable offers of dedication to San Bernardino County and the public for use: half of 84 feet right-of-way along the whole property frontage of Southside Road, plus 13 feet dedication for slope easement. And staff would like number 6 to read, improvements. Prior to recordation of the parcel map, the applicant shall enter into deferred improvement agreement to install half of 56-foot AC on 66-foot road bed, which may also include engineered retaining walls and/or slope protection along the whole property frontage of Southside Road upon the occurrence of any of the following events. 1, complete improvements are made to either both sides along the property frontage of Southside Road by the county or other developers, or 2, upon further subdivision of the parcel within the subdivision. Since the property is within the seismic special study zone, the above required improvements shall be based on recommendations by developers, soils engineer, as approved by the county engineer. A comprehensive design-level geotechnical engineering investigations report shall be submitted for review and approval by the county engineer as part of submission of engineered improvement plans for the above required improvement. And I'll go over the project. So the project is a minor subdivision. The applicant is proposing to subdivide the subject parcel into 4 lots. The subject parcel is approximately 63.174 acres in size, and the topography of the parcel ranges from flat to high slopes, steep slopes. The subject parcel contains an existing single-family dwelling on it and proposes to keep the existing home. This is one of the parcels that would be created by the minor subdivision. And here's a second buildable parcel. This is the 3rd parcel, and this would be a utility parcel surrounding the already used San Bernardino County water towers. And this is where the existing single-family dwelling is, and they would propose to keep the home. The property is located within the Ridgemark community and is surrounded by similar single-family dwelling uses. So. Initial study was completed and staff found that the property and the project is consistent with the county's general plan and county zoning ordinance. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the staff report, initial study, and all attachments, and certify the negative declaration. Staff further recommends that the Planning Commission, if it chooses, approve minor subdivision 1240-16, do so subject to the following findings and conditions of approval, and the changes read before.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just very briefly. You will recall the Commission discussed this last month, and there was some discussion particularly about the Southside Road conditions that are presented here in modified form.
Right.
We met with the applicant, both planning and the engineering department staff met with the applicant and discussed it, and we believe that the applicant will agree to the conditions that are presented before you this evening.
Well, how did that end up? I remember that conversation. They were not going to use Southside. Maybe they would use Southside. Maybe they could go in and out through Ridgemark. How did that all end up?
We didn't talk about the use of, is it Marks Drive, the road that comes to
Southside Road.
We didn't talk about that entrance specifically, but about the dedication and the requirement to construct the improvements on Southside Road that the engineering department requires as a part of the subdivision.
Okay.
The applicant will present in their testimony factors that they think and we believe support the waiving of the construction condition. The dedication of the right-of-way is acceptable to them. If then, at some point, we decide to widen Southside Road, reconstruct it to its intended right-of-way, we would have the land, but the applicant would need to participate in paying for the actual construction. The construction, excuse me, is very expensive in proportion to the project itself, and so we felt that it was an extreme hardship to impose that condition, and I think you'll find facts to support that as you hear the testimony.
So in other words, you're fine just getting the dedication for future purposes.
Yes, sir.
And not requiring them to participate in construction costs at these exorbitant costs. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, I have no questions.
Yeah? Any questions? Okay. We'll close it down at the commission level, open it up to the public. Anyone like to speak on this? Any speaker cards?
Hilden or Matt Kelly, whichever one will go first.
Good evening. My name is Matt Kelly, and I am Mr. Hilden's engineer. Robert, I'd really appreciate it if you would reread the first trigger of the deferred improvement agreement, because it didn't sound familiar to me.
This was written by our Public Works. Complete improvements are made to either or both sides along the property frontage Southside Road by the county or other developers.
Okay. When we met, we talked about what Director Barnes just explained, that the offer of dedication was sufficient, and we also agreed to the condition that upon further improvement or further subdivision of the property to trigger the deferred improvement, but not this first item that requires the improvements to be made if either or both sides of the frontage property by the county or other developers. That was not part of our discussion.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like, just not being here last time, but this looks like a continuance for staff and you to get back together and talk, huh?
I would prefer not. I would hope that
I don't want to negotiate it out here in public right now.
Well,
I don't think that's really our place to do that.
I believe that Mr. Kelly is correct, and I do not recognize item number one either. And it may be that I read the email that was sent to me with the proposed conditions in haste and overlooked it, but I don't think so.
I received the
Was it we
email
strike that?
also, and it was not in the email I received.
you propose that we strike that?
Number one, yes.
And Matt, you would agree to strike that, obviously, right?
Yes, and I very much appreciate the director's support in this matter.
Yeah, well, facts are facts, so. All right, so if that condition was being recommended by staff as being stricken, I think we can go forward, don't you, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, one question. You've got a a 4-unit subdivision right now. You said future development of this unit. Are you talking about splitting off more units later?
We are not proposing that.
Okay, not now, but in the future?
If it were to happen in the future, that would be grounds for the deferred improvement agreement being triggered. That's the idea.
What my idea is you've got a minor subdivision when maybe we should be talking about a major subdivision. But that's for other discussions on other days. So, so with the condition approval and your blessings on it too, I guess we can move forward with staff agreeing to that, right? Okay. Anything else, Matt?
I don't have anything further, thank you.
Okay. And in the future, you want to shoot your emails directly to staff before it gets to us, right?
Will do.
Thanks. Okay, then we can close. Any other from the applicant? No? Then Ridgemark, any Ridgemark people here, or the applicant would like to speak? No? We're good? Please come forward and fill out a speaker card.
Mr. Chairman, do you want a speaker card?
You can do it afterwards, yeah.
I'm Jack Murphy, resident of Ridgemark, and was here last month and expressed some concerns with regard to not specifically this applicant access over Ridgemark roads, but since the language sounds like the intention is to come across Ridgemark roads, I would now express a concern because those roads are owned by Ridgemark Homes Association, and we have not been approached with regard to access. That is not to suggest that we would disagree, but it is to infuse into the discussion the fact that we would like some consideration with regard to what the applicant intends to do, how he intends to do it, etc.
I think that would be good, especially for your future. Thank you. And we'll see if we can get the applicant to speak on that.
Good evening. I'm Lynn Hilden, the owner of the property. We have owned this property since 1999. We have never been a part of Ridgemark. However, we did pay Ridgemark Association fees as good neighbors. Our access is down to Southside Road. We finally got Ridgemark to move the gate up to the top of the hill so that people recognize my property line a little bit better than they have in the past. The two parcels, my parcel, the house where it is now, my son-in-law and daughter will be next to us. We will still access Southside. The other parcel that my nephew will be taking is on David Drive, which has always been in Ridgemark, and they know that it will be included in the homeowners association. They will be paying fees. That has always been understood. If you check with, what is it, the association? The guy that runs it? Thielander. If you, Penny, maybe you can answer for me?
Lynn, please direct your comments in and stay on the mic so we have you on record.
Okay. Well, Penny Betancourt is here. She was head of the Homeowners Association, and I think we've always been clear that we would be a part of the Homeowners Association if we were accessing through there. You know, we did that. We had the Tyler Knoll subdivision. We got that approved twice through Ridgemark Homeowners Association. So, you know, and it was voted on twice, but because of the delays that we went through with the county, we did it again. We've always been a good neighbor, and we donated over a half acre to them for the park. So I'm really amazed that somebody might raise the question as to whether or not we'll be good neighbors and join the organization. Perhaps my nephew would like to make his statement that he will be a part of it.
Okay. Well, that's why these forums exist, so the information gets out. Any other speakers on this?
Nobody cares.
State your name for the record.
My name's Tim Johns, and I'm from Ridgemark. I'm a homeowner there. I don't think anybody questions Mr. Hilden's intent to be a good neighbor and remain a good neighbor. I think the issue becomes is that as we have the other property development companies coming to us, it's the traffic, it's how much is going on the roads, it's how many people, how do you get in and out of the place. So if you look at Mr. Hilden's property in long terms, that there may be more housing there, the question for me becomes is, how do you get in and out of Ridgemark? So I don't think anybody's questioning Mr. Hilden or his good nature and what he's done for us or anything else of that nature. It's just the long-term planning of how do you take the Lampa property and get in and out. Now take the JMK or I can't think of the current owner's name, get his development in and out. And then if there's a bunch more houses up there, how do they get in and out?
Well, it appears he has access to Southside Road, so the county would basically say he has enough roadway to be able to allow access or not. Okay? That was just a general thing. Penny, come on up.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Lynn Hilden has always been a good neighbor to
What's your
Ridgemark.
name for the record?
Penny Betancourt, Ridgemark Homes Association. I do serve on the board, although I'm no longer president. We do have a history of conversations with Lynn Hilden. We have a gentleman's agreement that anything outside of his initial property where his home is would be annexed into Ridgemark Homes Association. It's basically a gentleman's agreement. I think some members are uncomfortable with that they'd like to see something more solid. And I think that's the only thing that's in question right now. David's Drive is within Ridgemark Estates, where Lynn Hilden's personal property can easily be excluded, but it would be hard to exclude something like the property on David's Drive. So if we could put something in writing, Lynn, I don't think anyone would question it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other speakers?
I know, it's between, totally. Exactly.
You can.
No. So they put it.
State your name for the record.
Valerie Egland. I live around Aromas, but I'm with Reach San Benito Foundation, and we're concerned about the parks. And so when I'm looking at this property, I heard that there was some dedication to properties, but I'd like to make that totally public, that how much park access there is for that development, how it might refer or how it might be situated to the Tres Pinas Creek or the San Benito River. And so that's my concern about making sure that these divisions are suitable for parks and living.
Right. This is on the other side of the roadway from the river.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought.
Yeah. So
what about bicycle lanes and things like that? Are those things being addressed at this point, or is that?
go to COG. COG's got a map of all the bike lanes in the county, and for public view, take a look, see.
Very good, thank you.
So if we end up doing something in there later, those will probably be included. Staff, I have a question. Who's got this? Robert? Yes. So the access you've got, primary access is Southside Road on this project?
Yes.
And not Ridgemark?
There's private access that he allows, Mr. Hilden allows public to go through.
But for his project to access, did you include that in as part of the traffic study or count for
There's
his?
no traffic study. The addition of two buildable lots would be a minimal impact on the level of service on the roads.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Mr. Betancourt, state your name for the record.
Richard Betancourt, 4140 Southside Road. I'm right at the bottom of Tyler Way. I don't have any problems with what Lynn's doing. My only question is, what direction is that dedication of property? Is that going to the west at the bottom of Tyler Way?
It would be the entire frontage along South Side Road, the frontage of Mr. Hilden's.
On the east side of that, at the bottom of Tyler Way, is my property.
Right, I understand.
My property goes across the road.
Well, we're not asking that you dedicate your property, only the part that Mr. Hilden owns.
Okay, the other people are indicating that if there's more development up there, I understand that Tyler Way is a private road and it's only access to Southside Road is for the kids that go to Southside School. Isn't that true? Okay, that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. Any other speakers? No? Okay, we'll close off public comment and bring it back to the commission level.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make very clear that what's before us tonight is a minor subdivision, 4 parcels, and there is no thought or consideration at this point or in the foreseeable future of an additional subdivision of any kind. I want to make the record clear on that. So,
and what's the size of the remainder on this?
Large, but it's quite steeply sloped.
Yes.
Matt, do you know the size of the remainder parcel? 60
acres. How much of that is 30% slope or more? Okay. Thank you for clarification. Okay, I can entertain a motion for this. Or not.
You got it, Robert? You got it?
I'm trying to...
Just strike that,
right
strike
here?
that first condition.
Check the first condition, right?
Yep.
I make a motion, we, with the staff and planning committee approval, MS 1236-16, with the secret findings and striking the first condition. Is that correct?
So with amended conditions number 5 and number 6, if I read this correctly.
With staff changes.
But striking condition, sub-condition bullet number 1. Striking the words, complete improvements are made to either or both sides along the property frontage of South Side Road by the county or other developers, semicolon, or. Striking those words.
Very good. Staff changes. Where's my motion? Where's my second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Barbara.
Sorry. We made all the secret findings, all the subdivision findings, and the conditions of approval as amended.
You got that in.
Thank you.
Okay, we're good to go. So I got a motion and a second, so I ask for approval now. All in favor say aye.
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 All that oppose? Okay, you pass. Thanks. Okay, Robert, you're up again for UP 1151-16. You got a busy night, dude.
I do. Thank you for your patience. Thank you again. So this is, I'm presenting use permit 1151-16, and this is an application by Metzer Farms for a use permit on 4000 Fairview Road. So the project site is located adjacent to Fairview Road and is accessed by an existing private driveway. The property is flat and currently fallow, has no vegetation or wildlife. The existing buildings are composed of wood and wire and have concrete floors. The property was formerly the site of a turkey farm. The subject property is zoned agricultural productive and designated as agriculture in the 2035 general plan. The intent of the AP district is to provide for areas within the county to be used for agricultural production, and in accordance to the San Benito County Code, frog and poultry farms may be allowed in the district upon the issuance of a conditional use permit. The applicant is requesting a use permit to allow the raising and breeding of ducks and geese at the site. All eggs produced during this process will be transported to Metzer Farms in Gonzales, California, 1 to 2 times a week. And the Gonzales location, the eggs will be incubated, hatched, and ultimately distributed as ducklings and goslings. Upon approval of the use permit, the applicant intends to populate the existing barn complex with approximately 3,000 ducks and 1,000 geese, and then grow the business from there to a maximum capacity of 14,500 birds. The birds would be confined within the buildings, but are cage-free and allowed to roam throughout the buildings. As part of the environmental document, mitigation monitoring programs would be created. There's a nutrient management plan that would allow the temporary storage of litter. Litter is what sits on the bottom of the floor of the concrete buildings, and they would be removed at least every 3 months and moved to a composting facility, and no litter would be spread on the farm. There would be a noise management plan where, geese and ducks are non-crowing birds, so we don't expect a lot of noise outside of, and then they're confined within the buildings. Noise complaints shall be made available to San Benito County Planning and subject to county inspections, and there's a complaint-driven portion where they'd be recorded and sent to the planning department as well. There's an odor minimization plan requiring employee training in best litter management techniques and a complaint and response protocol subject to county inspections. And then also a water supply and quality where San Benito County Water would monitor the nitrate levels of the first encounter wells on an annual basis. An initial study, mitigated negative declaration, was completed by staff, and staff found that the property and project is consistent with the county's general plan and county's zoning ordinance. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the staff report, initial study, mitigated negative declaration, and all attachments, and certify the mitigated negative declaration. Staff further recommends that the Planning Commission, if it chooses, approve use permit 115116. Do so subject to the following findings and conditions of approval.
So, Robert, first graph, staff analysis, first graph, last line it says, and raise tax review as a result, or
raise tax revenue,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So how do we raise tax revenue on this project without selling anything?
Part of the project does employ employees, 6 employees, and we look to kind of build an economic base in the county. So there's sales revenue and more people living within the county too because of the employment.
Economic development, it's all good. I just thought it'd be kind of cool if they actually sold them within the county so we get sales on it too, but.
Could be.
Okay. Commission level.
That's a good question. So they'd be selling these eggs to Gonzales?
No, they have a hatchery in Gonzales already, an established building, so they would.
So there's no transaction. They own a hatchery in Gonzales too.
I believe so.
Okay, so there's no moment of sales tax then with eggs being sold.
Yeah, no, grow them here. We have all the impacts here, and then they ship them back to Gonzales and sell them in Monterey County.
Right.
They would be donating proceeds from the composting to charities within San Benito County.
Proceeds from the composting?
Because the litter is composted, and all of the proceeds from that are donated to charities within San Benito County.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chair, having... By the way, did you know next month is my last month as a planning, as a
Congratulations
planning
on your-
commissioner, yeah. It's 12 years I've been sitting up here. That's a long time. 12 years I've been
Oh,
sitting
thank
up
you
here.
very much.
And during that time, through a lot of those years, I battled with Foster Farms out in Cienega, and
Yes.
an issue was odor.
Yeah, Foster Farms.
With all the Cienega folks, and we got into a very detailed, specific back and forth protocol for odor management, odor minimization, changing of the litter, and so forth. So I'm wondering if we need to take a page out of that playbook and apply it here so that we don't run into the same kind of problems.
We can. The Foster Farms project was far larger, 180,000 birds, I believe. So this is a very small fraction of the birds. And they were doing turkeys, which I think are different in nitrate levels. I think the droppings of geese and ducks are more dry. And because of the size of this project, I don't foresee odor issues, and it'll be addressed annually as it grows to the maximum capacity. It'll start at a 3,000 and then grow yearly, where we can keep track of the odor on an annual basis.
Okay, good. So it sounds like you were cognizant of that issue, and you're trying to stay in front of it. Yeah. Okay, that's smart.
The other thing on Foster Farms, they were in that little bowl.
Yeah.
So the odor was trapped, and then it would...
Topography was different, yeah.
This is right out in the open
Straight
in
flat,
Fairview, and it's low-lying. There'll be plenty of wind that hopefully will keep even the moisture level down on the compost piles.
Okay.
So, yeah, because I was here for that, too. That was not fun.
Yeah, no, it wasn't fun.
That wasn't fun.
Well, but it sounds like staff's is aware of the issue and has put steps into place and conditions of approval that will be in front of the odor issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so that a year or two from now, we're not getting complaints. Okay, excellent.
I got a question. Yes. Do you know approximately how many turkeys were there prior? I remember those places being packed with turkeys.
Higgins.
Because I lived in Fairview Road, so...
I'm not sure of the amount of turkeys that were there before. I know there's been state laws that now require more space for fowl, animal cruelty laws that require wing spread. So there could have been in the past more turkeys, depending on if they were in cages or not. So I'm not too familiar with that. Yeah.
Good. Pat? Nope. Okay, we'll open it up to public forum. Any questions from the public on this? Please step up, state your name on the record, and fill out a speaker card when you're done.
My name is John Metzer. I'm proposing the project, and he has my card. I'll answer some questions that were brought up. We'll sell to anybody in Hollister that wants to buy them. That's not a problem.
Good.
Most of them are for meat, and so there's not a sales tax. But we're already spending money in the county fixing up the buildings. I mean, we have an account at McKimmons and Ace, and we're going after stuff at the gravel place. So we're spending money in the county in that regard. So, and then I believe Ross had the same number, maybe a few more turkeys there than what we'll have. So that answers your question. Don't know if that helps, but I think he has planning on, I think he had more turkeys than what we're going to have as birds.
Okay.
And then to clarify the donation, I don't sell my manure or litter, and so we used to sell it. Insurance company says you can't sell it anymore. So I went to the guy that used to buy it, and I said, you're not writing me a check, you're writing a check to my favorite charity now. And so that's the manure that I get rid of on my facility in Gonzales. He writes a check to my favorite charity. So I said I'd do the same thing. Any manure generated in Hollister, there will be a benefit to that for favorite charities. And we've already sent some eggs over, not that we're producing here, but we've occasionally have extra eggs in our production, and we took those to the food bank there on San Felipe. So they already know us there.
Well, thank you.
So I don't know if there's any other questions, but it's an unusual project, and so if you have any questions, feel free.
You said, through the chair, you said that historically there were turkeys on site?
That is correct. It was a turkey breeding farm.
And did you acquire that business?
No, there have not been turkeys for several years. We're just wanting to grow ducks and geese on the property.
But historically, it was a turkey
Correct.
operation.
And it's not a major job to switch species.
Right.
But what we do with the eggs is basically we hatch them and sell them either to individuals or to feed stores or to commercial growers all over the United States and some internationally.
Okay.
Very good. Got it?
Any other?
Robert, any more? No? Nope.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. So we'll close off public comment and staff and legal. I forgot you last time, but I'm getting better.
Okay. I thought that the planning commission might have two options if it's concerned about the odor. One, it could put the item over and have us look at see if there's any additional conditions of approval, but if the planning commission wanted to act tonight, perhaps we could add additional condition of approval upon receipt of odor complaints by the county. The planning commission may require an amended odor control plan to be submitted to the planning commission for its review and approval.
Okay. Very good.
I think that's appropriate.
I think so, too. Good job, Barbara.
Okay.
So I'm open to a motion, then, with staff.
No.
You might want to ask the applicant if that's acceptable.
Oh,
yeah.
Of course he's going to say it's fine, right?
Yes, and I've never had a complaint in 40 years in Gonzales, but yes,
Exactly.
I'm very comfortable with that.
Okay.
Thank you. The applicant's in favor of that, for the record. Okay, I'm open to a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that I would make a motion that we approve this agenda item with the findings and conditions as articulated by staff and set forth in the staff report, and that we also amend the conditions of approval to include the condition as stated by county council for future odor mitigation or plan should the need arise or based upon a complaint, as stated by county council.
Yeah. Here's my motion. I have a second.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it passes. Welcome to the community.
Thank you.
And this down to Dan. Very good, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move on. Do we need a break or anything really quick for anyone? No? No, we're good? Okay. So we're going to move on to the portion where we're going to talk about basically long-range planning issues in the countywide. First, I'd like to see if we have San Juan Bautista represented. Anyone from San Juan Bautista here? Okay. Come on up to the front table there, Jim. Yeah, too bad. You raised your hand. Get up here. And the city, David, and anyone else from the city, please come forward to the table. Gabriel? So, the public knows, the commissions of San Juan Bautista and City of Hollister both were asked to join us tonight and basically talk about long-range planning in its general workshop. This is an open forum. We're not going to have a time limit on our dial here, but I ask for tolerance and respect. If someone's going to speak, allow them to finish. And then everyone that's going to speak needs to come up forward to the mic so we have everyone on record. And we try to keep it as general as possible, so as many items as possible would be allowed for discussion. So the first item, actually, if we go down the list, the first item will be on long-term growth impacts in the county and adjacent city lands. But also, I think LAFCO is represented tonight. And LAFCO, please come forward. Guess what? You're our first speaker. LAFCO, Local Area Formation Commission, many people do not even know what that is. So there's the new director, and he's going to explain a little bit about what LAFCO is, how it works, and why we need it.
Other way.
Yes.
Presentation. I just wondered if we could also expand the agenda to include another topic.
As long as it falls under the generalization in there anywhere, otherwise it's not posted. It has to be posted by posting rules. I'll tell you what, check with Barbara.
What's the topic, David?
Okay.
Workforce housing.
Okay, maybe I could grab that.
Regional traffic, corporate boundaries, and
Like in general?
implementation. General plan policies, that's a general plan policy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be one of the last things.
Because I know we have
Not getting it to go down.
Sure. Yeah.
Should be fine.
Any other additions, subtractions, multiplications? No? Okay. Please state your name for the record.
Okay, yes, my name is Bill Nicholson, and I'm the executive officer with the Local Agency Information Commission. And I apologize for just getting I have a little brief PowerPoint presentation here. Find it.
Maybe while we're waiting, the gentleman at the table could introduce themselves so the public knows.
Thank you, Pat. Yes, all the people in the front table, please introduce yourself to the public, and we'll start over here.
Chris Alvarez, and I represent the west side.
The City of Hollister.
City of Hollister.
City of Hollister Planning Commissioner.
Gabriel Torres, Hollister Planning Commissioner for District 4.
I'm David Huboy, I'm the current chairman of the City Planning Commission.
Joe West, I'm the San Joaquin District City Council.
I apologize.
Okay.
I must be blind, but I'm...
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break while LAFCO gets the records together.
I'm looking, it's a...
Okay, we'll bring the meeting to order. Hopefully I didn't wake anyone up. Do we have any high school students in the audience? No? I mean, other than Jason Noble? Okay, because sometimes we have to sign off on their paperwork. Okay, LAFCO, it's your show.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, I got this PowerPoint set up here, and I'm going to kind of start from the beginning for LAFCO, and for the benefit of the audience. I'm sure the commission is familiar with LAFCO, and all the city commissions are. But LAFCO, just for the benefit of the audience, is an independent agency. It's established by state law that every county in California has to have a local agency formation commission. And LAFCOs are made up of individuals from the county and from the various cities within the jurisdiction, and in San Benito's case, it's 5 members, 2 from the cities, 2 from the county, and a public member who's actually in the audience tonight in the back, Richard Betancourt. And to change boundaries of cities and special districts, you have to go through LAFCO. LAFCO also has a lot of importance in state law to try to balance the competing interests of either competing cities that are next to each other that are maybe growing towards each other. LAFCO gets to decide, well, which city should be annexing this territory, or which one is more capable of providing services, or protecting, in many cases, protecting open space. Maybe neither city should get the area, and LAFCO ends up getting to decide that if it's outside the city limits. And again, my role as executive officer, I'm accountable to the commission directly, not to the county or not to any of the cities. And again, as I mentioned, in our case in San Benito County, there's 2 supervisors on the commission who are appointed by the Board of Supervisors, and then 2 city representatives that are appointed by the City Selection Committee, which is made up of both cities in the county, and then there's a public member. And when the commission sits in these seats for their meetings, whether they come from the board or from the city council, they are to act under the guidelines and the state laws governing LAFCO. So even though you're a city councilman, you might have voted on an annexation for the city, if you get to LAFCO and there's other criteria that we consider, maybe your vote would be different. So under the law, you're supposed to be looking at the rules that are before you at that time. So,
and that would be the Knox-Cortese?
Yeah, Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, yes, adopted in government code. It's a specific section of the law just detailing LAFCO, and they're adding to it all the time. So, okay, so now I'm going to go back to specifics. So the purposes of LAFCOs in every county are to encourage orderly boundaries and discourage urban sprawl. And they were formed back in 1964 when the state was booming after, much after World War II, and there was a lot of subdivisions sprawling out all over, and San Jose was one of the best cases of annexing land down Highway 101 miles from the rest of the city, and they would just grab the right-of-way of 101 and then grab a interchange and put industrial development or housing development, and it really made no sense. And they extend sewer lines and water lines, and it's very difficult for police and fire protection to go down and serve a fire miles from the heart of San Jose. So it was going on in Southern California too. Again, as I mentioned, LAFCO's priorities are preserving open space and agricultural lands also, so we have to look at that with every proposal that comes forward if it's going to convert natural resources. Promoting efficient delivery of public services is very important, and nowadays with the drought, water supply is even in the forefront. And so not only how big is your pipeline going to be, but do you need to sink additional wells, or do you have surface water? And if you're short on water, where are you going to get it, or how are you going to acquire it? And there are certain studies that have to be done to prove that. And then there's the other issues that we get involved with, although we don't have direct control of it, are regional housing needs. So is there an annexation coming in for new housing? Is the city short on a supply of housing, and is that housing affordable, or is it higher income housing? As I mentioned, adequate water supplies are really important. There's a newer provision dealing with disadvantaged unincorporated communities, which are basically low income areas that are on the fringe of cities, and whether or not those areas should be annexed along with green fields or farmland. They should be taking in some of these unincorporated old developments that need public services. And there's a whole host of other issues related to that for LAFCO. So again, what LAFCOs are charged with is reviewing boundaries, which is the actual physical boundary of the city limits, or a special district boundary like the Sunny Slope Water District. If they're going to provide water service, it's got to be within their boundaries in most cases. There is a provision where you can extend services outside your boundaries in very limited cases, and I'll have a slide on that in a moment. There's a boundary called the sphere of influence, and for cities and special districts, you're only allowed to annex land or add land to your city if it's within the sphere of influence, and the sphere is defined as basically your ultimate service area. In the case of a city, that begins with the general plan of the city and sets out the areas that they're concerned about, and then the areas that they want to grow into, and usually they'll identify a proposed sphere of influence, but the cities have no authority to approve that, even though they'll have identified in the general plan. It goes then to LAFCO for LAFCO to say, should it be in your sphere of influence or not? And typically, you don't have overlapping spheres. San Juan Bautista and Hollister, in the future, at some point, if they're going to grow, LAFCO is going to set a line of which city is going to be on, where the line's going to end up, not have them overlap. There's a unique issue here in Hollister where you have the Sunny Slope Water District that provides water for urban consumption, and part of the boundary just goes well into the city limits and just stops at a point where the city provides water. So depending on which side of the street you're on, you're going to get it from a different source, but they're both for urban. And then when you go to other areas, it's basically ag water. It's not for domestic use. And so on those sides, the city is the only game in town when it comes to water supply. The other thing for LAFCO, though, we don't get into deciding land use. So LAFCO isn't in a role to say, if you make this housing project larger lots because we don't like so many apartments, then we would approve the annexation. LAFCO can't get into changing the land uses or complaining about the land uses. We look at the logic and the need for the uses, but we don't play games and change those land uses. And so some of the main responsibilities then of LAFCO we are the authority to adopt a sphere of influence for each city and each special district. And related to that is a requirement through the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, to adopt a municipal service review, which is analysis of the district or the city and what services they provide and the adequacy of those services, and even getting into the budgets and seeing is this entity viable or not. And if they're not viable, LAFCO could propose that like a small district consolidate with the city or even dissolve if they're not providing functions anymore. The interesting factor, though, for the county is the county covers the entire county, so there's no sphere of influence for the county. The county is responsible for everything within their boundary. When it comes to land use, their responsibility stops at the city limit line, and then it goes to the respective cities. So cities have to have a sphere, and special districts and county service areas that provide street lighting or stormwater or water, those have to go to LAFCO, but the county itself doesn't come to LAFCO and ask to change their sphere. And then unique to San Bernardino County is something that's been formed mutually especially among Hollister and the San Bernardino County Water District, is a urban service area intended for the boundaries of the city's sewer service primarily. That urban service area is not something that LAFCO has any real authority over. It's not one of the functions that LAFCO establishes unless it was a specific urban service area defined in the law. I put the code section up there, Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg. And in Santa Clara's case, you have urban service areas, and those are areas that are right on the edge of the city that are intended to be annexed in the next 5 years. They have to be in the sphere of influence. And once LAFCO has agreed to those areas, when the city's ready to annex, it just goes through LAFCO. It's just a rubber stamp. There are no debates. There's no denial. It has to be approved. And that's in the state law. But this urban service area for the Hollister sewer is a good idea, and it's I guess, acceptable among the parties in the county. And it actually went to LAFCO, and LAFCO voted on it, but LAFCO didn't really have any authority over it. It's not a list of a boundary that LAFCO has authority over. So LAFCO recognizes it is there, but it doesn't get around issues such as that boundary goes outside the sphere of influence of the city, and a city is not allowed to provide services outside their sphere of influence for new development, only for health and safety problems. So one of the issues before you is how to grapple with that boundary that was set, and people are relying on it to a certain degree, and how does that relate to a sphere of influence of the city, especially again of Hollister, or how does it relate to the city's general plan boundary, because some of that urban area goes beyond the city's general plan area also. And so just briefly, I wanted to mention this special provision for providing services outside the boundaries of a city or a district. And there's only two cases where you can do that. One is within your sphere of influence, you typically would be annexing that land to your city and providing all the services, police, fire, sewer, water, government. But if you have a unique situation, especially where you might have a bad well or something, then the city could annex it if it wasn't, could serve it with LAFCO's approval if it wasn't timely to annex it. And in those cases, LAFCO encourages, and we're working with the cities now, especially with Hollister, on getting an agreement with the landowner in the city that because they're giving you sewer connection or water connection, when we're ready to annex you later, you won't protest it. You're going to go along with it. So that's kind of a newer policy requirement. Otherwise, if you're outside the sphere of influence, you can't connect to a city or a special district sewer or water unless there's a documented health and safety threat, such as a well going dry or a well being contaminated. The city hadn't planned on going in that area if it's outside the sphere, and LAFCO can only approve it again if it's really an emergency, and we have to have documentation typically from environmental health or regional water quality control board or something. And again, that would be for existing development that's got a problem. You wouldn't go serve a new development project without that emergency, because it's not an emergency if it's new development. So in the discussions about the future growth of the city of Hollister specifically and the county's development on the fringe of the county, we have issues with city sewer being the only option. If it goes outside the city's sphere, LAFCO is not supposed to approve that for new development. So that's one of the issues at the table of how to make the sewer plant a regional plant versus a city municipal service like their water system and like their police services and all their other services. And so I just wanted to give a graphic then of what we're talking about with spheres of influence and general plan boundaries here locally. And again, the scale of the maps is hard to see, but this is just a county's general plan on the northern portion of the county where all the urban development is, and the white areas on the map that are kind of small, hard to see. I'm trying to use the laser pointer that seems to disappear. Okay, I just getting that. Do I have a cursor here? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to try to use the cursor if you can see very well. The airport, of course, north of Hollister is white, so that's in the city limits, and the bulk of the city to the south. If you can see the maps close enough, you'll see a lot of orange, which is unincorporated area designated residential that is either surrounded by the city, and we call those islands, or it's on the periphery of the city, and there's fingers of city going into those areas. And then over to the west is, get the cursor over here. Yeah, we have San Juan Bautista, which is a more uniform, solid block of the white area, and that's the city limits for them. And the areas around that is all agricultural in the county. But for Hollister, you'll see there's a lot of county areas with the colors designated for either commercial or industrial or residential development. So the next map is a Hollister urban area, which is a combination of their overall general plan boundary, which includes a lot of farmland that the city may or may not be ever interested in annexing, but they put it in a general plan as their area of concern. And then within that boundary is their sphere of influence, which, again, I'm trying to get the cursor to show. It wraps around the north side of the airport and then comes very closely along to the airport and grabs land and comes down I'd say about a half mile east of San Felipe Road, and then it jets east on Santa Ana Road and comes down over on Fairview. And this would be, that sphere of influence, again, includes everything that's in the city and then the areas that the city had anticipated annexing in, well, typically it would be a 20-year timeframe. I know that the city's newer general plan from 2009, I believe, hasn't come back to LAFCO for an amended sphere if the city was looking at that. I know that's part of the discussion that is maybe going on tonight and going on maybe every week or every month. But then within that boundary, of course, there's the city limits, which is anything that's being developed today within the city is within the city limits. This map is just showing the colored land uses within the city's planning area. And you can see on the far north, that green is agricultural, so the city hasn't planned on development up there, but they put it in their planning area as an area of concern or interest. And then all the other areas are highlighted for some type of development, residential, commercial, industrial typically. And then this is San Juan Bautista's general plan area. The outer line that's yellow or gold is this, what they call the area of concern, and areas that they may have some interest in, whether the county was doing something or whether there's farming going on, or as you had earlier tonight, some kind of poultry operation that may have odors that the city wants to comment on to the county. And then within that, the red line is their sphere of influence, again, the area that they would eventually grow into through their general plan, and then the blue area is their city limits. And there's actually, in this map, which comes out of the general plan, it says the blue is this proposed city limits, so there's actually some area in the southeast side that's not in the city limits that is proposed to be someday below Highway 156. But the city limits are pretty much parallel with 156 in that area. But the red area is where they would ultimately want to annex. And I think that's the last map I have. Yeah, so go back to that. So that's the end of my presentation, and I can take questions or wait until you have some discussion and answer questions then at your pleasure.
Could I ask a question? On the land of San Juan Bautista, on the map you have up there, how much larger is that planning area than the city limits right now? It looks like it's maybe 3 times.
Yeah, you can tell it's 3 or 4 times larger. However, the planning area doesn't necessarily, in fact, it clearly doesn't mean it's the area that they want to grow. The planning area, they've called it in their general plan an area of concern. And again, many times a city will identify areas that they want to put on the record that they're worried or concerned about what the county might do. And since the county can process use permits for agricultural operations like a dairy or a poultry facility, the city could be impacted by having a plan for residential development, and then the county approves of use right outside that planned area, even though it's not in the city limits yet. It's planned, again, in 10 or 20 years out. And then once the city grows to that point, if you have a ongoing dairy, now you've pretty much made it a nuisance for the future housing development. So the city doesn't have any real authority over that area, but it's an area that they would want to coordinate with the county and talk about land uses.
East, southwest, it's very steep and dark. I mean, it overlooks the whole city, but you can't build it.
You couldn't build anything.
Out of the distance, but it overlooks it.
The canyon? Jim, is that the canyon you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the blue line, though, the blue line actually, they have services in there. Water is within that area.
Right, and the blue line, for the most part, is the current city limits. Again, on the southeast, it's not, only a straight east-west line is in the city limits. Get the cursor again. But otherwise...
Have you ever overlaid the floodplain map on this thing?
I don't have that. I have looked at it, yes.
You see all the little lines of all the streets and all that right in there? Those are the only things that are outside the floodplain.
No.
It's kind of runs through that whole area and in there.
As does the San Andreas Fault.
Yeah, overlay that sometime. And then overlay the San Andreas Fault. Yeah, boom, right down through. Just lines up on the mission.
Since we adopted our city general plan 2005, it looks to me like the sphere of influence is pretty much stayed basically the same, or just minor adjustments, is that correct?
No, as I understand it, the sphere of influence shrunk back, and unfortunately I don't have a map of that, but the sphere was like a rectangle, kind of running northwest, southeast, or this way for where you are, and it's shrunk back to the red line areas, again, like to the north that were mostly prime ag land. It was, I guess, a convenient sphere to have at one point that LAFCO had approved, but with the new general plan, it got shrunk to areas that were more...
I'm referring to the current general plan that we have.
For City of Hollister, Dave? City of Hollister.
I'm sorry, I'm
Can
on
you
the
flip
wrong
back
city.
to the City of
I'm on the
Hollister
wrong
map?
city. Yeah.
And Dave, so you know, I was on city planning when that happened, and we brought it back in from the north.
Yeah, as I understand it, and again, I've only been here like 5 months, but as I understand it, the sphere of influence didn't change when you updated your general plan. The city didn't come and apply to LAFCO to change the sphere. And I could be wrong. Since you updated your general plan, so it's yeah, it stayed. The sphere stayed the same, and that's why you'll see in this map showing you urban land uses. There are some areas, especially on the east side, that are not within your sphere. I'll just do this here. You have a general plan boundary over here, and
Yeah, but that's the phasing area. If you look at the general plan map for the city, that's the phasing area. Also, look at up of Buena Vista Road, the sort of darker orange. That's a phasing area. That was the idea when we built that thing. I said on the committee when we did this. It was to fill those areas in because they were adjacent to the city, and those would be probably phased in with housing. They went to the west side or the east side because Sunny Slope Water's there, and there, you could access Sunny Slope Water easily and still build in the county over there. So that supposedly is going to be phased in later as far as possible annexation in future, which would be one of the things we're kind of talking about tonight, too.
exactly. If you're using city sewer for new development over there, and it's not in the sphere of influence, LAFCO has to say no. So if the intent was...
But that's part of the regional, so that's regional. Our sewer system is a regional sewer system, right? So it has access into the county as well.
Right.
Okay, but not too far into the county, but into the county. And this is within that jurisdiction, or that sphere and service line, too.
Yeah, and
those are serviced by sewer.
Well, the problem is legally they're not, because LAFCO, in state law, you cannot extend your service outside the sphere of influence unless it's a health and safety problem. So new development is not kosher. It's only because you have a farm labor camp, the well went bad, and it's poisoning the residents.
Right.
Now you hook them up. If you want to do new development, you need to extend that sphere of influence for the city. And then the question to LAFCO is this in anticipation of annexation, or is this a county development on city sewer, on Sunny Slope Water that's never going to be annexed, but the city's willing to give it sewer in its sphere for some other reason? And that's a little bit of the confusion that coming in from a LAFCO perspective, I see that urban service area had a good intent, but it was not following the state law about what an urban service boundary is for going outside the boundaries of your jurisdiction. So if you could have a regional sewer plant like Los Angeles has a sewer plant that serves all these cities, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, Los Angeles itself, Venice, but the sewer is a municipal water or sewer facility, and their boundary includes all those cities. Hollister's boundary includes the city limits. They don't have a sewer district or a sewer utility that's a separate entity that could go to LAFCO and get a sphere of influence. It's a department of the city, so there's a problem in this area where the city is treating their plant like a regional plant, but under the law, it's tied to the city limits unless you go through this 56133 analysis. If it's in the sphere, then the city could hook up new development, but it's in anticipation of a future annexation. So what you've got here is a situation where the city may not intend to annex, and they're willing to provide sewer anyway for a variety of reasons, and then the county gets to provide all the other services that the city would typically provide, and then the city has to figure out how to do that through a CSA which is a county service area, or a new CFD, a community facilities district, Mello-Roos, or some other way. And again, that's where there's kind of a rub, because the city serves new development all the time. That's what cities do. They're focused on growth and urban. Counties provide a whole lot of other services, including ag land, ag commissioner, running mental health and all these other facilities. So urban is a bit more challenging, and especially when it's fragmented, that you have development in pockets around the county, not just from the city going out. You have development in different locations. So one of the challenges you have is having a regional sewer plant is a great idea. It's, you've studied it. The San Benito County Water District has done the plan. They actually initiated that. But the problem with it is this, in my own view, I think they should have said, let's create a sewer district or some sewer entity that has the jurisdiction to provide sewer wherever, and the city council acts as the sewer board. But in this case, the sewer is just another department, just like the water, and you're limited by LAFCO, and LAFCO is limited by state law on where you can provide that sewer.
Okay.
So it's...
So the next person that gets to speak is going to be Brent on South Side and Union Road development.
I will talk about that, and we'll talk about something else, but I want to comment on Bill's annexations. Bill, if I heard what you said correctly, the very, in a nutshell, is that if we anticipate urban development, it should be annexed into not only the Hollister Municipal Utilities District, whatever that's called, but also into the city, because that defines the utilities district.
Yeah, the sewer utility is run by the city as a department, so it's a city utility versus a regional utility.
So legally, we need to be looking at presumably putting urban growth into a urbanized place, the city of Hollister or the city of San Juan Bautista. We've talked a lot over a number of meetings about the South Side Road area. I don't have an update on that tonight. It's gone dark unless there's someone in the audience who wants to comment on that. For the benefit of those in the audience and the other commissioners who may not be as familiar with it, there are about more or less a dozen different development projects roughly in the area of South Side Road and Enterprise Road, Union Road, down around the migrant labor camp and the county yard, comprising as many as 1,000 residential units. And we ask those 8 or 10 or 12 developers to get together and work on a voluntary plan, if you will, for how to treat semi-regional projects like road improvements and sewer lift stations and those sorts of things. There's been a lot of activity on the part of that group, but as I said, it's gone dark recently. I know that at least one developer pulled out, and the property is for sale or has gone to another buyer who is working with us. There's also potentially another buyer for one of the other properties who we met with earlier today, and they seem to be on board with their share of the regional stuff. So I think it's generally in good shape, but when we don't have, Mr. Chairman, I apologize right now, because it was supposed to be on this agenda, the specific plan, as big S, big P. We had it on last month, and it was supposed to be continued to this month, and apparently it didn't make the agenda. We'll put it back on for December. The county's attempt to sort of force that planning conversation about those regional issues and the streets and the water infrastructure and whether it should be in the city or not, parks and recreation, non-auto circulation, the whole range of issues. So I'm happy to answer more questions about that. The other thing I want to raise is that this is an area where in the general plan the county did not anticipate significant growth at the time that the general plan was under preparation a couple of years ago. It just happened. There are reasons for that, as there are with any development pressure, but they caught us off guard. Having said that, we have another opportunity now to get ahead of that curve in another part of the county. I'm sure most of you have heard of the high-speed rail project that is likely to swing through the northern part of the county without a stop in San Benito. There is also another project that is afoot, back on the table, if you will, and that is the Route 152 realignment project that would create presumably a limited access highway from the 25-101 interchange to somewhere near the Pacheco Y. The alignment, the configuration, the timing, none of that is been determined at all. It's a fuzzy line on a fuzzy map. But that creates huge opportunities, I think, for the county. But it's in a place where, again, we have not anticipated growth, and so we are going to need to look very closely at our general plan and determine if that circulation piece is going to drive land use. If it's a limited access highway, for example, would the areas where those interchanges, 2 or 3 or 4, might occur, would those be nodes of growth, industrial, commercial, residential, or something else? What is the alignment? How does that affect land use, both agricultural and otherwise? All of these things we will be bringing to you as over the next few months, along with a lot of other circulation element changes that we need to undertake. But I want to put that on the table as something for discussion, for consideration, beginning tonight, and it should be a part of your long-range visionary thinking.
As part of regional traffic, and with that, okay, so you opened it up to that. Let's talk about that for a few minutes anyway. What would the old 25 look like then? You're talking about something in addition to the old Balsa Road 25, or are you talking about something, a completely different artery to help commuters get out of the area safely?
This is envisioned, it's a part of a, what is the word, Mary? Trade route, trade corridor. And it's intended predominantly for interregional traffic, long-range traffic, truck traffic, and visitors passing through rather than local traffic. In my thinking, it would come down, roughly down the alignment of 25 to about Balsa Road and then turn east, either along that right-of-way or somewhere north or south, and sort of swing across through Dunville and hook up with 156, I'm sorry, in the vicinity of the...
Don Pacheco Way?
Yeah, the Grove or somewhere up there. And there's some topography there. There's at least 2 or 3 different alignments that we would have to look at. They have various environmental impacts and various community development impacts that we would have to study. But that would sort of be the general area where that would go. So 25 itself would probably, at least part of it, be reconfigured as this realigned 152, and then south of Balsa Road, or Shore Road, I'm sorry, Shore Road would continue on more or less as 25, but in the improved 25 that is under consideration now, the realigned, rebuilt 25 that's been on the Caltrans books for some time.
Is that the one that's supposed to end up down at Sergeant's Crossing and not in its place right now? Because
25?
Yeah, the temporary 25 into 101, that was always temporary, and there's not enough room around it for interchange and ramps. So they were talking about moving it a little further south in a place what we call Sergeant's.
I know where Sergeant's is, yeah.
Okay, so is that the realignment you're discussing?
The only realignment, the only improvement to the 25-101 intersection that I've seen is at that location.
Okay.
That same general location, not at Sargent.
Okay. So let's get the public involved a little bit here first. Any public members want to talk to this a little bit or express? Jason, come on up and state your name for the record. Like nobody knows you.
Jason Noble, I'm from Trespinos. What Mr. Barnes has just described, we've been hearing since the late 1980s, early 1990s. It was described as alternative A1A, A1B, and the E, which was going over the existing 152. All three of these been considered for over 25 years. A1A, I believe, went roughly a quarter to a third of a mile south of Dunville, and A1B was going to go roughly through Dunville Estates and parallel Shore Road. So it'd be great if they do something about it, but it's been 25 years and not much has changed.
Thank you, Jason. Little wake-up call.
Mr. Chairman, I spent roughly the last 20 years in voluntary exile in the state of New Jersey, and there we had a saying. It was voluntary. We had a saying that the only dead project is the one that's built. So 25 years is about the right time for things to start happening.
Yeah, and the attitudes on land dedication and taking for the greater good have kind of changed some too. Next speaker, state your name for the record.
Steve Rosati, Hollister resident. If I can, I'd like to talk about two projects. I'd just like to request, regarding the Highway 156 GAP project, a request that both planning commissions go on record with the Board of Supervisors and City Council supporting that route, since Highway 152 is now going to come out in the limelight since Measure B passed up in Santa Clara County. As I understand, some revenues were going to be provided to the interchange from that measure. So that activity is going to be very active in the very near future. So we have to kind of, I hate to use the word dig in, but at least temporarily kind of dig in with what we know today and let some really good planning items come up in the future to change it. So I think it's really important that at least the planning commissions do tell the Board of Supervisors and the City Council that the GAP project is necessary and shouldn't become any discussions of part of Highway 152, to negate one for the benefit of the other. San Benito County needs the GAP project. It's well along. I don't really foresee any problems. But when something like this happens, it might be a possible alternative just to throw out there because of the funding problems for the third phase of 152. Similar situation happened on the 156 bypass. That project was well along, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there came talk about, again, many, many years ago, as the previous speaker spoke, discussions about taking the county minimums from San Benito County's bypass project to be put onto the third phase came up, and luckily it didn't go forward. So, could happen again. So I just think it's important for us to go on record. So it is a regional route, but we need it for our commute traffic and for our own use as well, the GAP. So, and part of that is also important, I think, that maybe the state can designate the new 152 project to 101 as the official truck route for the coastal Silicon Valley use, possibly. And again, that's something that I think should come from our county. Again, the planning commissioners are planners, and I really think it's important to go on record from a planning standpoint, not a political standpoint. You follow the general plans in planning. And I think it's important for other people that don't follow the general plans, maybe quite so much, to follow that.
Continue on, Steve. There's no timer at this workshop.
Okay, and then lastly then on Highway 25, and again 152, again, it comes into play into there. I think it's important for both planning commissions to look at the maps and look at what's planned out there on Highway 25, go on record to support a northern route, not a southern route, on that project because any development that goes on is going to have a difficult time accessing a non-access route, and the extra cost it's going to take to either put an interchange or something of that nature for an access point is going to fall on the hands of San Benito County and the future developers along Highway 25. So if we think of bringing it too far south, it really could jeopardize a lot out there and ruin, that area for a decent access that's not costly on our part 15 years down the road or 10 years down the road. So, anyway, that's my thoughts.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Mr. Bettencourt?
Do you want the timer or
No. This is a workshop. State your name for the record.
Richard Bettencourt, 4140 Southside Road. I haven't heard anybody say anything about, we have a rail spur coming to town. Why can't we get Caltrans to come in here and help out with the commute traffic? That would, to me, would really take a lot of pressure off of Caltrans.
Caltrans?
Yeah.
I think it's because somebody else owns the right-of-way, but that's just a guess. Anyone speak to that in the room?
The right-of-way is privately owned. I think it's Union Pacific or a subsidiary thereof. That's what the signs say. Sure.
You should probably be sitting up here. It's Mary, right? State your name for the record.
Mary Gilbert. I'm the Executive Director for the Council of San Benito County Governments, and I just wanted to say, I should invite everyone here to the COG meeting tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. The Council of Governments Board of Directors will be talking about the potential rail extension to San Benito County from Santa Clara County. So one of the issues is,
Mary, so where is that going to be located?
In this Board of Supervisors chambers,
Okay,
3 o'clock p.m. tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
And so one of the issues is, yes, it is privately owned by not the UP. It's a separate private entity that owns the rail lines. So, we'd have to negotiate with Caltrain if we were looking at Caltrain service or potentially looking at operating a separately operated commuter rail that would connect to Caltrain service. So, all of those options have different pros and cons, and it's a very costly endeavor, but it's definitely something that's on the table for our long-range planning.
But those tracks in that right-of-way, Mary, end up at the Caltrain station in Gilroy?
The branch line connects to the main line, which does go to the Caltrain station in Gilroy.
So conceivably, if we did everything right, we could have a commuter train leaving from Hollister every morning, going up all the way to San Jose.
Right. If
go to San Francisco, yeah. Palo Alto.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah, if we could, as long as
it'd be pretty cool. I think we should take a look at that. Yeah, you got that?
And again, the Council of Governments is definitely taking a look at that. So
that would be great.
And there's a designated spur area that we put into the city's general plan that's just north, a little northeast of town, right?
Right, yeah, for a yard area, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes. So, yeah, we're working with city staff as well as the county staff, of course.
For what was that, for a transportation hub?
Actually, when we did the general plan last time, we had talked about a commuter train coming in.
Yeah.
Because of pollution, and we didn't really consider it to be growth-inducing at the time.
Huh?
But, and we actually designated a spur area. I believe it was off of Flora. Wasn't it off of Flora Road or someplace out there?
I'd have to look at the map.
I thought you guys created like a transportation hub over there by Rancher's Feed in that area.
What we wanted to do is bring it in and drop it off at the old train station and kind of make that a long parking area in there, but I think they told us that the area just wouldn't be big enough. So we came up with these other alternatives, but...
Yeah, the last full study that was done was in 2000, when COG had a full-blown study done where we were looking at locations for rail stations and what the operations might look like and what they might cost. So since that time, there hasn't been any, we've kept it on the books as far as a long-range project, but we haven't done any more operations studies. So things like that would be things we'd need to reconsider.
And the general plan had actually sort of stated it as a planning line thing, so hopefully nothing would be put there instead, and it would be left there if we ever needed it in the future. So,
Mary, on that study, didn't it turn out that it was like $1 million a mile to bring those tracks up to?
Yeah.
It was extremely expensive.
It's very expensive to bring them up for, the track that currently comes into San Benito County is not at grade for passengers, so the speed that the train can go is very slow, so the upgrade, yes, would be.
well, it's like below 35 miles an hour or something like that?
Yeah.
And $14 million for the improvement.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So as far as us as a community, who's taking the lead on bringing the train to Hollister? Is that COG? Is that a COG thing, or is it the San Benito County Board of Supervisors thing, or who does that?
Well, I mean, it's in the Council of Governments Regional Transportation Plan, which is the long-range plan for the county's transportation needs, but we work in concert with the cities and the county on that. And of course, COG is made up of, just for the benefit of the folks in the room, COG is made up of representatives from the San Benito County Board of Supervisors, the City of Hollister City Council, and the City of San Juan Bautista, San Juan City Council. So those, jurisdictions are all represented on the independent Council of Governments Board of Directors. So it's, it's on our, like I say, it's on our agenda tomorrow, just for the board to begin discussions about what our next steps might be, if that's something that we'll be pursuing for further study.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, Mary, does the 2000 study, is that on your website still?
It is. It's on the COG website, sanbenitocog.org. And I believe it's under the library section of the website.
Commissioner Lowe?
Mary, can you tell me where the GAP project stands right now?
Yes, the State Route 156 widening. So that project is fully funded right now through construction. Caltrans is the lead on that project out of their San Luis Obispo office in District 5. Construction is scheduled to start in fall of 2020 on that project. It's been pushed out, unfortunately, due to a funding crisis at the state level. It wasn't. It was really outside of the COG or Caltrans control that the project had to be moved out. They're moving on schedule and are in the right-of-way phase right now of acquiring properties for the project.
But it is fully funded.
It's fully funded, yes.
How much did San Benito County pay of the funding?
$9.6 million of traffic impact fees that are being paid by new development is allocated for the project, and another $9.6 million is coming from our local share of state transportation improvement program funds, which are specifically for state highway needs in the county.
What's the total cost of the project?
About $63 million.
And what's you said it's going to start fall of 2020?
Yes, fall of 2020.
And what's like 6 months?
The end date? No, it'll be longer than that. Take a little bit more time than that. Unfortunately, I don't have the full construction schedule. So.
That's right. So.
Any questions?
Okay. Now, somebody came up earlier and was asking about bike trails.
Yes.
So this is the lady to talk to about the bike trails, and tomorrow at 3, she'll probably be here. So, thanks, Mary.
Okay, thank you.
Any other speakers? State your name in the mic.
John Talia, Director of Facilities for the Hollister School District. Good evening, Commissioners.
Welcome, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by thanking both the city and county planning department staffs for the inclusion of the Hollister School District in some of the most recent planning. It's been really enjoyable sitting at the table, understanding the developments that are happening within our community and how they are going to impact our school district directly with the proposed growth. I'd like to remind the commissioners of the need to identify future school locations within the city and the county. As these homes and developments come in, it's going to be imperative that we start today planning for those future locations. And I might remind you that the state is very critical when it comes to the land that school needs to be built on. We don't have the most prime land in regards to our faults and flood zones and so forth, so we are limited. But as we see more and more developments come, we're having less and less land to work with. So I'm here this evening to remind the commission, both commissions, of the importance of planning for our future schools as our growth is projected here in the future. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for your comment. Yes.
Would it be possible for you to maybe send a letter to the Planning Commission just saying where you see on the school site, just general area, obviously not parcels of land, but where the Hollister School District would like to look at growing?
Yes, I will be happy to do that. We have been working with Mr. Barnes in the County Planning Department, as well as we've been working with the city manager, Bill Avera, City of Hollister, in his planning department as well. So we'd be more than happy to write a letter and identifying just general locations or areas that we foresee that we would need some type of site dedicated for future schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, John?
Yes.
Can you just talk briefly about the south side and your activity there?
Yes, so again, going back to the inclusion, sitting at the table, greatly appreciated that invitation and understanding the magnitude of the projects and how they're going to impact that area. We will be in need of a future school site there, south of Union Road. We have had some very brief informal conversations through the County Planning Department with some of the local developers there to see if there is any land that would be feasible. The reality is we would need probably 16 acres is probably a suitable site for us for a elementary middle school. Probably 16 to 20 acres, 20 acres being the max. But again, the land has to be suitable for us to be able to build per the state's requirements. The other point for us, too, is just more or less the safety and security of our students getting to and from school each day. As our city grows, our traffic networking comes together, we're going to have some major arterials here that we don't want our students having to cross necessarily each day, such as Union Road, for example. It's going to be a major thoroughfare here very shortly. So we do have a school located on the north side, which would be Ladd Lane, to possibly house some of those future developments, the students on the south side developments. But again, as that area grows and that street becomes more busy, we're going to need something on the south of Union Road to accommodate those students and residents that live on the south side there. So we are, as we grow, we are looking at the redistricting of our school site boundaries themselves. For example, right now our middle schools are separated east, north and south, and we are looking at possibly using the Highway 25 now as an east-west dividing line. Again, going back to major arterials that carry a lot of vehicles each day and not wanting our students having to cross those unnecessarily if possible.
What about a pedestrian flyover on Union? Would that be too wide of a road, too busily traveled, or would you be able to join them up that way?
That could be possible. I'm just not sure what the ending development would look like as far as the width of the road and so forth, but that could be a possibility, I would imagine.
Safety for the kids, I mean,
My experience is unless there's deer fencing down the median, that they'd rather cross the road at surface level.
So I have a question, Mr. Chair. So with the south side plan that's underway, that was one of the things, we identified early on was the need for a potential school down there if there's going to be 1,000 new houses and 12 new developments. And I'm glad that you're at that table, and that was definitely our intent. And not just you, fire, police, parks, let's get everybody at that same table. But here's my question. So how's that going to work exactly? If he needs 16 to 20 acres, is one of those developers just going to donate that land or be forced to contribute it? Or are they all going to pitch in? Or has someone offered you 16 acres so far? How's that going?
TBD.
What was the term that Mr. Barnes used? It's been a little dark lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, there hasn't been much discussion since our initial meetings, but we were trying to look at some potential areas that could possibly be suitable for a school site. And again, our district only goes so far to the south and runs into Ridgemark, and then it becomes South Side school district, which they were at the table as well, if you recall, and they will be greatly impacted because a large majority of that development falls within their school district. So there's going to need to be some type of plan put together to accommodate these students to ensure that they have adequate facilities to attend school. Whether that is a realignment of boundaries or additional areas that can be carved out for Southside. But I know there was discussions about even just the road getting up to the school could be very challenging as well. So we think it has to be more discussions, obviously, but no, there's been no concrete discussion in regards to a 16-acre parcel. For us to at least investigate that, that would be beneficial for us so that we would know either way if the state would even consider that that piece of property, if there was one, to be suitable for a school.
But yet you remain optimistic that these guys are going to all come together and identify and donate a 16-acre site.
Well, I think we were good till you got to the word donate.
Well, or identify.
Offer for purchase at market price?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, good. If he's optimistic, so good luck.
That's ag cost, right? Not residential market price, but agricultural market price.
It's industrial, isn't it?
Whatever John can negotiate. I mean, the process is that there would be an appraisal, perhaps 3 appraisals in my experience, and we'd take the average of those or the middle one, and that would be the purchase price. But it's been 35 years plus since I bought school land, so it may have changed.
Yeah. So thank you, John. Thank you for your comments. And thank you for showing up.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Any other speakers? Penny, it looks like you're up.
Yeah.
How's Ridgemark doing?
It's doing great.
State
Happier these days.
State your name for the record.
Penny Betancourt. I live at 633 Marks Drive. I didn't come planning to speak on this subject tonight, but I'm going to say that I'm really disheartened to hear that the GAP project is being pushed out till 2020. I take that route, Union Road, 156, every morning to work. 7 months of the year, the Salinas Valley is in season, and we can talk about railways to service Silicon Valley in the north. We can talk about 25, but 156 serves the southbound commuters. And when I'm on 156, there's very few of them that are turning north on 101. Most of them are going south. So any improvements north are not going to help the people that are commuting to the Salinas Valley, Monterey area. I just think that with all the development that's being planned, you talk about 1,000 homes just in our area. We're gridlocked now. When you go from 101 and you hit San Juan Bautista, everyone's trying back roads, routing around, trying to get through. It is gridlock at that light, especially on a Friday, and it's always been that way on a Friday. This last year has been the very worst. That every day is like a Friday at that light. And in the morning, moving on Union Road, you can go through 6 to 8 light changes to get through. And I've tried other routes through The city of Hollister, it's no better. You hit 25 and the 25 bypass to 156. It's near gridlock. So I'm really concerned that we have all this planning, and I think it's great for the county. We don't have jobs in the county. You know, you outgrow Hollister very quickly. You know, our kids all go other places to get jobs. People keep coming. We're a bedroom community. We keep adding homes. There are no jobs here, and we have no way in and out of this county, out of this. We really don't. So even though I am not against the growth, I think we really need to think about how soon that growth should happen before we have the infrastructure that can support it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and that's why we're here tonight, to start opening discussions and stuff like that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd say a few words since we worked on the general plan in 2004.
State your name, David.
David Huboy. I don't know if this is working here. But it would be nice to have an overall blueprint of growth outside the city, outside the planning boundaries, because primarily what I'm concerned about, and I know a lot of people are also concerned about within the city, is that the only improvement that was identified in our general plan was the Highway 25 bypass, which occurred subsequent to our general plan. Since then, we identified that how important it is to widen Fairview, to connect Fairview with San Felipe, to widen Union Road. Union Road, to me, is a treacherous path. To connect Memorial to Fallon and also the West Side extent. None of those improvements have been done since 2004. And we've had all this growth. So, I mean, within the city perspective, I think we have to be mindful of our arterial routes within the city and how that is impacted by growth as well as the schools.
Agreed. Brent can speak a little bit to some of the improvements on Fairview. Take it away, Mr. Martins.
Well, that's a really interesting question, and before I start that, I want to piggyback on something that Ms. Bettencourt said, and that is jobs. I think it would be very, very important for the commissions to talk about economic growth here in the community and figure out a way to do that so that folks don't have to leave town. Fairview Road. Right now, in the county general plan, Fairview Road is anticipated to be widened in the same way that the Route 25 bypass is created. It is, in fact, intended as a bypass around a bypass. And just one person, but as a longtime transportation planner, I don't think that's a really good idea for those communities that are being built over there. What we've looked at and talked about more recently is recreating that in a smaller cross-section, or at least a more traffic-calmed cross-section, 4-lane arterial, but perhaps with roundabouts or at least some closely interspersed signals so that it's not a 60, 70, 80 mile an hour road. I mean, I would think that we could all raise our hand as witnesses to folks who have passed illegally on a turn or in over a double yellow line or seen some crazy behavior on that road, and it scares me to death to drive out there. But putting Santana Ranch and all the other development communities on the east side of that road is a recipe for disaster in either the 55 mile an hour configuration or in the present condition. We have to find something in between. While I'm on that subject, the intersection of Fairview and Route 25, the Gavilan College site, the Ridgemark Commercial Center property there, sort of at the gates, the Roberts Ranch site, the Fairview Corners site, there will be intense development in that area as well. And that's an area that is literally uphill from the sewage connection pipes that we talked about earlier, and that needs to be, it can't go on septic tank because of the size of the developments and the soil out there, and we will need to figure out a way to annex that into either the city or into the utility service district. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have about Fairview Road.
Mr. Chair? The utility service district, I don't understand what that is.
The Hollister Sewer Service District?
They have a separate district?
Well, it's a department of the city. That's what Bill Nicholson was speaking about before. But
Right, but they have not developed a separate district.
It's not a district,
I'm sorry?
It's not a district.
Okay.
Without annexing the city.
Right, okay. But has been used as a district in the past in that annexations have occurred. And that's what I'm trying to get away from here.
But I think that was my question as of the way the conversation laid out tonight. It doesn't sound like that is going to be a feasible alternative in the
Right.
future.
Hooking up to the city sewer could be a feasible alternative if it's done through the correct steps. So the first option is that the city annexes land where the growth occurs. Then they're going to provide every service except for water in that part of it, because Sunny Slope provides the water. Sunny Slope actually has sewer, but as I understand it, they're not interested in becoming a new sewer purveyor for new development. They've got what they've got, and they're done with that. The new areas that they've annexed or that they're serving is just for water. So either the city becomes a regional district, they form some entity that can provide sewer within its own boundary accepted by LAFCO, or the city itself becomes the entity providing all the services except for water.
I really want to make sure I'm clear on this. So moving forward, what we're saying is that the city will have to basically form this district, or it will annex the land. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know of any other, besides doing a district, I don't know what else they can do to get a boundary of a regional, it's really a regional service authority. And a district is, there's many different kinds of districts, community services districts, sanitation districts. So they could form an entity like that that's only for sewer, and then, coordinate with the county on all these other issues, schools, roads, land use. If they want to be in charge of the whole development game, the subdivision approval and all that, then they would annex the land. And I just want to make a little editorial comment. Sewer is the main, well, water actually is even more important, but you have a few water providers out here. But sewer is the make or break for anybody to do an economic development of a subdivision instead of 1 acre lots or larger. So the city controls it. If the city wants to serve sewer out into the county, as many historic examples occur, then that's fine, and the county can approve it. If the city chose not to, and I also do LAFCO and Merced County, the cities do not give the county sewer service outside their limits. They will hold on to it until they're ready to annex. The county relies on special districts like Sunny Slope for urban development in isolated locations around the county. But when you get to any of the 6 cities, they are very tight with their sewer, only for issues like a out-of-boundary where you got a farm labor camp, the water is full of arsenic or something, they'll provide a connection, but they're not going to approve a subdivision in the county, and they will not. They dig in their heels. So there's a situation here that's different, that it could be a cooperative situation or it could be a financial situation, but if it's in the sphere, then the city can do that. They're supposed to be annexing it later, but they would have to choose that. But if it's outside the sphere, then they just can't provide it for new development. So some new solution, they're talking about either they amend their sphere and annex, or they create a district that would have its own sphere and its own boundary. And so it's, there's a lot of history for that. The sewer plant, I know that's oversized and a lot of revenue needs to be generated. So there's a lot of issues there. But, from the LAFCO perspective, it's perhaps a district or some solution like that. If the city is willing to do that, there could be an alternative. And that leaves the county to provide all the other services for the residents, not schools, but all, parks and, you name it, street sweeping and street lights, unless the city annexes it, then the city provides all those services. So, lot of options out there, a lot of food for thought, a lot of different paths to take.
You good, Pat? Mr. Nichols, please. Dan?
Oh, no, this wasn't directed towards LAFCO, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make
I'll get back to you.
I just want to make this proclamation or editorial or statement, excuse me, getting back to what Penny and a few others have said, and I've said it myself. In my opinion, traffic in San Benito County has reached a critical red level emergency. Somebody's got to do something place. It is awful out there. And maybe some of you who live in Hollister don't feel it as much as over in District 2 in San Juan Bautista, but you cannot get to Hollister in the afternoons or early evenings anymore. It used to be fine, and then it was bad on Fridays. Now it's bad every day heading east from San Juan. It's a parking lot. It'll take 45 minutes. And it's not just 156. I don't know if any of you have tried to get to Gilroy on a Sunday afternoon. Good luck. You need a helicopter to get to Gilroy on a Sunday afternoon on Highway 101. Highway 101 is a parking lot every Sunday afternoon. I mean, stop and go. It looks like a 49ers game just got out or something. It's unbelievable, the amount of traffic, and something has to be done. And it has to be addressed, I think, on a regional, interregional basis with City of Hollister, City of San Juan Bautista, San Benito County, State of California. Maybe even the feds get involved at this point. It is that bad. And, when we're talking about growth and, around City of Hollister and Southside Road and these things, looking at this thing called traffic, I think it's a mistake to look at it as just being this mysterious, kind of amorphous, what do we do? It's not that complicated. You've got a town, a city of Hollister that's going to, grow to, 40, 50,000 people maybe in the future, and it's 8 miles from 101. And all those folks, they got to get to 101, whether they go south to Monterey County or whether they go north up in Santa Clara County, but they got to find a way to 101. It's not that complicated. So some of them are going to take 25. Well, 25's not that great of a route. And some of them are going to take 156 to get to 101. That's got its problems. If you're putting 1,000 houses on Southside Road, how are those folks going to get to 101 in the morning? And how are they going to get home? Union Road. That's the only way to go. That's what they're going to do. They're going to all get on Union Road. Maybe some of them will go north through town, the bypass to 25. But so again, I think it's a mistake to approach it as this mysterious thing. I think it's kind of practical. We have to do something about Union Road. The Union Road 156 intersection is a problem. The reason why 156 is a parking lot in the afternoons is because the signal light at Union Road. Somebody needs to start having a conversation about what are we going to do about Union and 156. The GAP project, Mary knows I'm not a big fan of the GAP project, but that's, sorry to say, that's not going to take anybody's problems away. They're creating 4 new lanes, but it's going to go back down to 2 lanes at Union Road. The GAP project does not eliminate the traffic light at Union Road. I don't know if that needs an overpass or an underpass or something, but something has to be done there, and it has to be done fast, because it's just going to get worse. And I think a conversation needs to start now about what are we as a county going to do to alleviate these critically horrible traffic conditions. Because otherwise, none of us are going to want to live here. It's that bad.
Good.
Thank you. We'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you. That's the reason we're having this tonight.
Yeah.
Mr. Barnes.
Mr. Chairman, I absolutely agree with you. There are a number of traffic problems around, and there are obvious ones and less obvious ones. They're all virtually all intractable problems. But from my perspective, and I've been doing this a while, and specifically on this question, it's not a traffic or a transportation infrastructure issue, it's a land use issue. We are a bedroom community, as you've all pointed out, which means we get in our cars each morning and go off to work. That's a great system, except that we have to get on our cars and go off to work. And the more we build of that, the more, and we've locked it in through our general plan and Hollister's general plan and San Juan's general plan. We've locked in that auto-dependent land use pattern for the next 100 years. And unless we change that in our general plans and in our community thinking and build higher density housing, mixed use, higher density housing that can support transit development like the rail line, like bus service, and so on, mixed use that will create opportunities for walking and biking trips, jobs in town to shorten commutes, and have all these alternative strategies, there is no way, you heard it here first, there is no way to build our way out of congestion. If we widen 156 in 5 years, it will be the parking lot. You will recognize it as that same parking lot that you have today. If you widen 25 in 5-10 years, it will be exactly where it is right now, and you will want to widen it again. I went through this literally in New Jersey, and we got to the place where we ran out of right-of-way on roads. We could not widen them anymore, 6, 8, 10 lanes. The New Jersey Turnpike is like 12, 15 lanes in some places, and it has gridlock. You cannot build your way out of gridlock. So we need to think of alternative strategies. And I would hope that that's what the commission is about, as well as trying to solve those immediate problems, which I agree are absolutely critical.
And I agree, and I think that this general plan that we worked on has a lot of mixed-use land use designation, but there's something else missing in the equation for attracting business into our community, and so we're not relying on our cars to go to jobs outside our community. There's got to be a discussion about impact fees. There's got to be discussion about other ways to promote business other than mixed use. I mean, mixed use is a good way to start, but I think there's a lot more that we have to do.
I totally agree with both of you guys, and you know, who could argue against trying to create local jobs, local businesses, you know, through urban planning, try to design and plan on a less auto-dependent type of community. That stuff's all great. But one thing that nobody in this room is going to change is the fact that an hour north of here, we have the greatest economic engine that the world has ever known, called Silicon Valley. Unbelievable amounts of money being made up there. Google, Facebook, Uber, Twitter, all of those guys, billions, if not trillions of dollars. That is going to attract people to work there for those jobs. They're some of the best, most sought-after jobs on the planet. People who go to work there are going to need a place to live. They can pay $1.2 million for a 3-bedroom, 2-house tract house in Blossom Valley in a gang-infested neighborhood where they wake up every morning to see what was spray painted on their garage door. Or they can come, if they're willing to drive, down to San Benito County and have a nice house, a nice quality of life, you know, if they're willing to commute. Those are just principles of economics, supply and demand. We have a supply, which is land and housing opportunities, and the demand is the Silicon Valley workers. We're not going to change that. Can we do things to supplement and provide jobs locally and so forth? Totally, absolutely. Like I said, who could argue with that? But in the indefinite future, we better plan on this bedroom commuter thing, and we better find a way for these folks to get to and from Highway 101 in a way that makes sense, because right now it's not making sense. Right now it's broken.
Not disagreeing with you, but what you said is absolutely right. Silicon Valley is a magnet. It's a huge magnet. How do we, rather than exporting the people, how do we import the magnet? How do we create a sense of place here that will bring Google, Uber, whatever the new startup is, Moonbeam startup, I don't know, whatever it is, the next technology. Some of those things are here under the radar, but we need to bring them up and celebrate them and create opportunities, and I think that the impact fees are a huge example of why they don't come.
Yeah, you have to incentivize it.
But also to, in a regional perspective on our Highway 25, I mean, we look at that as improving it for commuters, but also improving it for business to come into our city. We want to have a good, safe way to get to our our area. And it's from the outside coming in and from the inside going out. Two ways of looking at it. We have to fix Highway 25, and we have to fix our major arteries to get in and out of the city.
Right. No, I agree.
And be looking at light rail and things like that, but.
And that all is good stuff.
Yeah.
Smart growth, high density, and light rail.
So, to Mr. Barnes, the answer is the area has already been set aside by the city. Yeah, it's already been set aside by the city. It's already, the whole idea around the whole air park at the airport and across it. So all of that's already designated, set aside, and kind of ready to go. It just needs some, for the city and the county to sort of entice and try to draw. So that was the plan a long time ago,
Right.
with that particular area. Oh, by the way, I've got a lot of friends at Apple and Google. They live there. They can afford to live there. They don't mind living there, and they do not want to commute. And those Teslas, they don't go that far. So pretty much here we get a lot of the other people that come down and buy into the area, and they do still commute, and their salaries up there and other service jobs and industries are still really well. So they can still come down here, but.
So
I'm more interested in how do we provide affordable housing for our own local residents. That's really what I want to see, and part of that I think is projects like the one behind Kmart that are smaller lots, all two-story, more denser, more of a village, walkable kind of a community. That are affordable. There's more nurses and school teachers, local school teachers, moving into that project than anyone from outside. And I think that's providing affordable housing for local people that it's in the 400 range or whatever we can do. But the trouble with that is you have to build more houses to get cheaper product, right? And that adds more impact. It also adds to the population base, which help encourage business. So it's a double-edged sword. It's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So I agree with all of you, and we need to work on all of that. I think part of those things are really still kind of in play, and we can make use of them. It's just we haven't come into the economic development part of it yet and figured out a way to really push, encourage, and sell the area, the region, part of the reason for the wine trail on our general plan. That Pinot Noir colored trail that runs through Cienega and all over to help encourage winery, agribusinesses, agritourism, and all of that. And the economy's it's only just really increased lately, and it's not really growing that much. But I see we're on the beginning of the roads, and we start opening up ideas like this and working on projects like this. I can see it happening in the future. I can see at least some potential of hope here.
So we've set aside, and I don't know how long ago, a number of acres near the airport. How long has that been? Maybe 5 at least, 10 probably, and maybe more?
30.
30, okay.
The business park.
And the development hasn't happened. There's obviously a reason for that. We don't know what the reason is, but there's clearly, but on the other side of the coin, those Googles and Ubers and Microsofts and other stuff are doing R&D elsewhere in the county, not on that land. They're not looking for that kind of land.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to we need to figure out what they are looking for, and we also need to incentivize the land around the airport where we want to have that growth in some different way, rather than just put it out there and designate it as blue on the general plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not working.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We need to get redevelopment specialists in and identify the issues and the problems and then start addressing them. Up to the mic, Mr. Burns.
I think we're still trying to attract 1980s commercial. And last I looked, we're not in the 80s anymore.
Yep. Maybe so. Maybe so. So, any, please come forward.
Thank you.
State your name.
Valerie Eglund. And since I am on the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee for COG, I would like to say, and working with Parks and Rec Commission and Mr. Barnes and Mary, that there has been a huge conversation about parks in San Benito County and the fact that we are in a perfect storm area. We are being squeezed by Monterey, we're being squeezed by Santa Cruz, we're being squeezed by Santa Clara County. We have all the commuters or people coming over from the valley. They're wanting to disperse to the coast. Well, the coast is filled up. We can't even go to Santa Cruz if we wanted to on an afternoon. So in our general plan, we have that beautiful River Parkway. We have the Pinnacles. We have a historic park. We have Fremont Peak. We have the Anza Trail. We have beautiful assets that, if they were brought together, would create the kind of atmosphere that these companies want to bring their employees. Their employees are creative people. That's what they do. They want to be in a creative atmosphere. And unless we provide that, we're going to get no business unless it's grunt work. So I'm really focused on producing that kind of atmosphere. Seattle, how many of the Silicon Valley businesses have moved to Seattle? It is one of the cities that's on the forefront of bicycle pedestrian, alternative transportation, parks like crazy. That's what will bring those industries here.
Thank you. I agree to some point, but I think taxes got a lot to do with it, too.
Yeah, money.
It's about the money in corporate.
It's all about money. Got to incentivize these guys.
So, any members of the, let's open it up a little bit. Any ideas or anything that's the public would like to come forward to and just address that's about general growth in the region? Now's your big chance. This is it. Come on, Ted, you're smiling.
Anyone volunteer to fix Union in 156?
I'll donate $1.
15 minutes of fame. Steve, come on forward. Yeah.
Before Steve comes up, I just want to say, I also agree with Valerie regarding our parks and business. Employees want to be able to take a break and take a little walk down and have a cup of coffee underneath a spreading.
Oh, for sure. For sure. That's a good point.
Can't understate that.
Steve?
Oh, okay. Steve Rosati, Hollister resident. I just wanted to rattle a few things. The interchange at 101 isn't at Sargent's. That's, I guess, had environmental problems, as I understand, so they're talking about using the temporary interchange as the intersection, talk-wise. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot of stuff going on, and if we get caught behind, like Mr. DeVries said, a lot of things happen and creates a nightmare for us to deal with, so we really have to jump on all this stuff, as everybody's saying today. I would like to throw out there, just sometimes we need a little history to kind of remember how we have to kick ourselves a little bit to get moving. I like Jason, 20 years ago things were talked about, and here we are today and not much has happened. I'd like just to remind Mr. DeVries that, if I'm not mistaken, the gap would have been built about 10 years ago, but I think there were some concerns out of San Juan Bautista that stopped it. So we mustn't forget about that. So I just have to say that. So anyway, with that being said, positive is we need to move forward, and just remember, let's learn from, the past. Let's not have to come up here and say, 20 years ago we talked about it. It's really easy. We just get going. Again, you're the planning commission. You're talking about all these intersections that need help. When you have business decisions being made to impact fees where certain developments are offered and provided old fees instead of the new fees, where millions of dollars are lost, you as planning commissioners should And I'm surprised that you haven't expressed yourself to the people that put you in place to remind them not to do it again. Because we're not going to be able to build the infrastructure that everybody's yelling about here today if we're giving away the farm. And your planners, the people that put you here, need to hear it from you. They're tired about hearing it from us over and over again. And you know, come on, you spend a lot of time here. Wouldn't you like to see some infrastructure? So, like you said, those fees, we've just lost $5 million in impact fees easily from a couple of decisions that were made. And your representatives need to be told never to do it again.
Thank you, Steve. Jason.
Good evening. I'm not sure where I'm going to go with all this.
State your name for the record.
Jason Noble.
Still the same, huh?
Pardon me?
It's still the same name. Good.
Still me. I don't think we can blame it all on residential growth. If you look back to the early 2000s, we haven't built that many units to say this is in essence the problem. It's contributory, there's no question about it, but it's not the center of the problem. As I heard previously, we have a regional issue. Well, Dan said, try and go up 101 on a Sunday. It's really, really difficult. Jim and I were on the General Plan Advisory Update Committee, and one of the things that we emphasized strongly was we want to remain an ag community. About 3 weeks ago, I was leaving Tres Pinos, and I got behind a produce truck going about 20 miles an hour. Guess what? He was going the same place I was. First there's 3 cars, then there's 10 cars, then there's 20 cars, then we get to Union 156. We want produce, but we're not eating it all. We got to ship it out of here to somebody else to eat it. But we want ag in our community. That's important to us. We want to maintain that. What's the constant here that is the problem? State Highway 156, State Highway 152, State Highway 25, something that we have little or no power to get the funding to improve. And that's the problem. What was the proposition that just passed in Santa Clara that as part of it, I think it was 64, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of it included money for a flyover at 25 and 101. But how long is it before we're going to see that? As an economic engine in our community, we need growth. You're not going to get Applebee's, you're not going to get other things to come here that people say we want and need without more rooftops. So it's somewhat a perfect storm, but the 3 constants that remain the same that are going to solve or help relieve the problem: State Highway 152, 156, and 25. We need Sacramento support in doing something, and we're not the only ones asking for it. There's other areas in the region that are going to be asking as well. How do we get their attention? Maybe it's the fact that we do have as much ag as we do, that we do are partners in a lot of ways with other farmers from Salinas, that maybe they can get Sacramento's ear and realizing what this economic engine does and how important it is. If you look at 156, it's partly commuters. There's a lot of ag trucks. There's salad going back and forth. 25 is strongly a commuter road, and 152 is strongly that commerce that's going back and forth across the valley. If they realized how many dollars were passing to our community, and I think that was one of the problems back in 89 and 90 was we didn't want the road built in our county, 152 realignment, because it was going to take away from our county transportation dollars for a road that we barely used. It was helping Santa Clara. It was helping Merced County. I really don't have an answer. I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Jess. And you know, sometimes we don't look at the growth of the big valley, of the Central Valley. And there's a ton more people that move into that area, and they do like to go to the beach on the weekends. And so Friday and Saturday, it's just crazy. Once you hit 152, 156, and 101, it's just nutso. And I don't know if there's, it's just an add-on to what's going on in traffic in the whole bigger region. So one thing we haven't touched on that I know Gabriel's just chomping at the bit at is probably local affordable housing or below market housing or...
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, I had one question under the annexation policies and corporate. Okay. Brent, when we developed the general plan, it went on and on and on forever. And there were X amount of developments that wanted to kind of say, me too, and be incorporated in that. And those developments were asked to wait. Wait till we get the new general plan, and then we'll look at these individually. And the discussion was that because of the time and the money for the general plan, that was the best way to handle it. How are we handling those? Are they coming forward on a one-by-one basis? I know there was a list of them because I remember reading it. What's going on with those projects?
Well, I've never seen a list.
Well, I know it's in the minutes of the general plan discussions. That's where I've seen it, obviously.
Okay. Maybe Laserfish can strike gold for me there, but I'll put the clerk of the board on that. We've had a number of folks come to us and say, yeah, we were asked to wait. All of those that we know about are proceeding ahead. I'm unable to answer your question comparing the folks I've talked to with a list that I haven't seen. Depending on the time that's passed, I would be willing to bet that some of those have gone by the wayside as prospective buyers that have moved on to something else. But certainly the landowners that underlie those development proposals are still in place, and
they're being considered. They're not being told, well, you're not in the general plan, so you can't do anything right now.
No, not at all.
They're being considered as, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we don't ever tell anyone, no, I'm sorry, no, not ever. Some situations are more difficult than others. Topography, water, infrastructure, other kinds of issues. Some are ridiculously easy, but we encourage everybody to come forward on the, and we work with them to try and solve the infrastructure and other problems that they have and create a development. It's not a matter of turning folks away.
Okay, and then if you actually, I guess, get the list of those people, then...
I look forward to seeing the list, yeah.
Okay.
So you were specifically talking about the number of people that were holding off waiting for the general plan with staff telling them, no problem, you'll be able to go and do your project.
Right, or at least have it looked at.
And not a problem. And then now the general plan's accepted and they're saying, okay, I'm sorry, this just doesn't fit into the general plan. You may not be able to do this at all.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm
Exactly.
concerned. I just want to make sure that we're giving those people
A
what
fair
they
hearing.
deserve.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we have anyone in the public that wants to speak to this? Oh, just so happens.
Ted Interview, Hollister. I happen to be one of those projects that were told that we were supposed to wait, and so the general plan would get done without, being a nuisance. So we waited, and now that I did come to you, we still have a problem. We have to have 60 acres, 70 acres to make a specific plan that was never spoken, we never knew anything about until now. So we do have a problem, and it's an issue with us. And we'd like to get going on it. It's only been 8 years, so I guess that's just a normal thing for Hollister. But problem that we have in this community is we wait, and we wait, and we wait. I don't know why we wait so long. Why don't we get something done? Boss has been there since I was a kid. San Luis Batista's been there since I was a kid, though. So why do we wait so long to get something done in this community? That's my question.
Oh, when you were a kid, that was a long time ago.
So Mr. Interview is one of the folks that I have talked to, and I before he was coming up, I was going to add to what I said. In many ways, the rules have changed under the new general plan, and one of the things that Mr. Interview is talking about is one of those new community study areas that we put into the general plan that requires a specific plan be developed for a community so that we have it's the South Side situation, so that we have a unified approach to infrastructure, community design, if you will, parks and schools, the whole array of sort of larger community issues. And I can't go back, and I wasn't even a part of the conversations when Mr. Intervilla and others were told, just wait, just wait. So I can't characterize how those conversations were conducted or what kind of promises might have been made. Universally, the folks that I've talked to have said, I was told just wait and it would all be okay. And as a planner, I have to look at that sort of with a grain of salt, because we all knew, the planning staff, development community, the commission, the board, all knew that the development rules were going to change with the coming of the new general plan. And so just wait, it'll be taken care of, may or may not have been said, but there was certainly an expectation that something new was coming along through this multi-year, very intensive process.
You know, Brent, you said something that really bothers me with the word specific plan, because I've seen now this community change suddenly, and we're not going to do a development anymore. We're going to do a specific plan for this huge region. And you know, I don't know who's going to pay for all these specific plans, but I think maybe the Planning Commission itself has to have a discussion about specific plans and how we move forward, because I can't imagine fencing us off in these different quarters of 500 acres or whatever and doing a specific plan for every one of them and see how smaller projects fit into it, because I don't think we can afford it. And, you know, maybe my thought of a specific plan is different than what you're talking about, but I really think we need the conversation.
Yeah. And in the, Ted, how big is your project, the acre-wise? 32 acres. So, and that's the question I have is how small or big before a specific plan is required? I would think specific plans would have to be bigger areas or something like that, because maybe we just see this differently than you see specific plans. But we see specific plans where you've got a volume of people to where you need now neighborhood commercial, you need a park, you need a school, you need all these other. Santana Ranch is a good example. And I think that's well served by their specific plan. But when you start getting into smaller projects, then it becomes just a non-growth kind of inducing tool. And I'm not sure it's going to help the project. So a lot of these project people put good projects together on their own. That's kind of why we're having Union and Highland go out there and do their thing, because we figure the developers could do it quicker, do it faster, do it better.
Exactly right.
Than government. Okay, so yeah, we should probably put that on the list of items to talk about next year on specific plans and
Well,
some of
what that will require is probably, if I understand you correctly, is taking away the specific plan requirement. That would require a general plan amendment.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about, I think, what the chair just said. When do we require a specific plan, and what does that look like? Does it look like 500 acres? Does it look like 30 acres? I mean, I think that's the conversation that I want to have.
Yeah, I do too. So, and with that, then let's move into affordable housing, and then we'll put it to bed for the night. Everyone's starting to yawn.
I'd really like to hear what the city's doing about affordable housing.
Yeah.
They've sat there all night patiently waiting.
Yeah, we appreciate your patience.
I'll say the one thing about affordable housing that, I don't know if this is working or not, but it's not working? Oh, good for you. Okay. I guess many of you are aware that of SB 1069?
I'm sorry. I hate to do this to you, David, but maybe you could use that I can't hear you at all.
I'm having trouble hearing you too. Unless you could get it right up to your mouth. No.
I'm sorry.
So it was brought to my attention, SB 1069. It's about secondary dwelling units. And what it is, if you don't know what SB 1069, which Governor Brown signed that, should go in effect next year, is that communities such as Hollister, San Juan Bautista, need to look at land use for secondary dwelling units, or granny units, as they call, and promote those in terms of maybe having to change land use designation to allow secondary dwelling units, to lower fees regarding that in a variety of different ways. I think secondary dwelling units not only can provide a source of affordable housing, but also can be used for different purposes, maybe having a little office, or, you know, having a place for a relative, an elderly relative who may need a place such as that to be close to a caregiver. So it's something that I think we need to look at. We're going to have discussion about is SB 1069.
So, well, hold on for a second. So we have this in the county. We have granny units in the county. We have secondary units. Some of them are a problem because they're restricted. We're actually kind of beginning discussions about relieving restrictions on secondary units, but we got plenty of room. I mean, we have acreage. So what do you physically see? Do you see, what size does the lot have to be? How big is the secondary unit? Is it attached, or does it look like a duplex? Or
yeah, we have, currently we have in our zoning book, City of Hollister, we do have square foot requirements, minimum square foot, minimum lot size. But to make it affordable, we may have to look at the associated impact fees for a small dwelling unit like that. You know, to make it affordable.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, this is not below market. This is just low market.
We have staff representatives here from the City of Hollister, so they may be a little bit more knowledgeable than I. What is the minimum lot area, Abraham, for secondary dwelling unit?
7,000 square foot lots.
7,000 square foot lots.
That's the smallest?
That's the smallest, really?
Okay.
For second unit, for an accessory second unit to be built.
Okay.
Well, see, we may have to look at that.
Well, in the project behind Kmart, those lots are like 3,000, but it's a PUD, it's a planned unit development, so you don't have to follow zoning code on that, so you can step outside of that in order to make it happen.
Right.
Do you see stuff like that happening within certain district areas, or like you have the downtown residential office space? Do you see within certain, or are you just going to lay it out across all of your zones?
I don't see us laying it all the way across the zones, but I think that we look at, you know, residential zones in general and have a flexible approach to this in terms of lot size and all residential zones, perhaps, to allow for secondary dwelling units.
Okay.
This is something that we're going to have discussion about because it's a state law.
Yeah.
To effect.
Yeah. It could be good for San Juan.
Ray, then it gets into the thing of, do you restrict it to a relative, blood relative?
We're beginning to say no. We're saying we got to make it affordable to everyone. So we're talking about relieving the restrictions of our secondary units, which are granny, and you actually have a letter of relationship.
Yeah.
We're thinking that's not working out.
Eliminate that, it's not going to be a thing. That and also reduce the impact fees.
Yeah.
You know, because you can't go from impact fees on secondary unit.
Well, see, look at it this way. So your secondary unit, if you have an age restriction on it, of 55 or older, now you don't have school impacts. So you've just reduced your school impact fees. You'll still pay impact fees, but you've reduced them. So there could be some movement of certain things within that, but then you also have to end up with that recurring check to see if it's happening that way forever. Now, if that's a restricted housing, you got to make sure it's still 50. Someone that's 55 or older is in there. I mean, that creates more government management, and I hate that. But. And you also just doubled your traffic. Well, I mean, we've been talking traffic all night.
I don't know about
you just
the
doubled your traffic impact now, right? But if it's 55 or older, well, they don't commute.
Yeah.
They're off hours. They have disposable income. They love to spend on the restaurants. Yeah. So, and they don't have kids to impact the
55 or
school.
older is still,
Yeah, sorry.
I make more trips now than when I was working, I'm sorry.
Well, you're active, in the communities.
The wheels are turning, and we'll have to start the conversation. I'm sure there's going to be a lot to talk about regarding it.
Mm-hmm.
But we will need to talk about it.
How does the city feel about in lieu fees or inclusionary housing?
Well, I think I have an associate planning commissioner that would like to talk.
Segue to Gabriel? Okay.
I like to see more sweat equity.
Well, as
South County Housing? Mm-hmm. Gabriel, you have sweat equity in your group too, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We used to have it, yes. But as one of the stakeholders in the affordable housing, development community, there's a member represented here today as well. For Chispa, we felt that the county's move in putting in an actually inclusionary ordinance was a first good step. I mean, having those tools, you as planning commissioners, having those tools available to you for any development that comes into the county, I think was essential. And I think with both all the organizations who participated and worked with Brent to fine-tune that document, we were very pleased with the end result and are happy that the Board of Supervisors approved that. Now, speaking as a planning commissioner for the city of Hollister, we feel, and I don't want to speak for all my fellow planning commissioners, I think we feel a little jealous that you planning commissioners, your toolbox is a little fuller with tools than ours. In some cases, we have developments coming into the city where we feel like they're just pushing these things through. The staff level, or I'm sure feel like their hands are tied, and getting the affordable component built within these developments. I know, and Dave and I have looked at developments coming through Planning Commission and saying, why are we just pumping through these 50-unit single-family subdivision developments? We need to take these back and rethink this. And so we are talking as a group to working with the city as well to come up with a game plan of either using the county's approved inclusionary ordinance as a model for something that we can mimic with the city. And I think it's imperative that we have some similarities there, because any project that is coming in the county within the sphere of influence will ultimately require sewer and water connections from the city. And so they have to be on the same page. So whatever ordinance that ultimately is incorporated into the city should mirror very closely what's in the county as well. And so I know we're having ongoing discussions as affordable housing stakeholders with the representatives from the city about how that's going to happen. We're talking about meeting, obviously, with the election. We have a few new elected officials that need to be brought up to speed in regards to what is affordable housing, and as well as the community. There's a lot of misconceptions in the current community of what is affordable and what are the income levels, and those are some of the discussions that we as affordable housing stakeholders are planning on having a lot more of over the next few months, along with the city staff, to work on a draft ordinance that we can work through the channels, through the city, through our fellow commissioners and council members who appointed us as planning commissioners. We're going to go to them and said, folks, we need these tools for these developments that are coming into our community. And I think all of my fellow commissioners are on the same page that, we're going to work very actively in making that happen. So that's kind of where we're at, I think, at this point, unless Abraham or anybody from the city has anything further. But, yeah. We're having those talks and those negotiations right now, and hope to have something, to show for it in here in the next few months.
Very good. Thanks, Gabriel.
Does the city have any housing developments now basically, that are affordable coming on board, or?
Cheeseball and Buena
We have our
Vista.
Buena Vista.
No, the city, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's been, it was developed in the county, but now it's been annexed into the city. Speaking of pipeline-wise.
Does that mean the county doesn't get credit for those units?
So I'm not sure how the RETA numbers were ultimately divided for that project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That problem again, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Abraham Prado with the City of Hollister. Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak. We currently do have the project that we're working on is for the Chispa project on Buena Vista Road. That's the one that we have for affordable housing currently in the City of Hollister. We do have in the works projects that we are working on for tentative maps. We don't have an inclusionary ordinance as Commissioner Torres indicated, but we do, in our general plan, we do have policy that indicates that the city encourages the development of affordable housing. Prior to the redevelopment agency disappearing back in 2012, the city was very active in funding affordable housing projects. In fact, since 2008 till now, a major part of the development in the City of Hollister has been affordable housing. We have Seth Capon here, who was with South County Housing, and we have, for example, two developments, Hillview 1 and 2, that's 55 residential units that were built in the west side of town. We have another 32 that were built on West Side Boulevard and 4th Street. That's another project. Those are apartments. And then we have the Vista Meadows, the 72 senior apartments, each restricted on East Park and Rancho Drive. So those are big. Most of the development from 2009 to 2012 was affordable housing, but then unfortunately the redevelopment agencies vanished, and so now, even though we don't have an inclusionary zoning ordinance, the city is still very well in favor of creating affordable housing. In fact, when the developers come to the City of Hollister, we do tell them, when they meet with us as staff, we tell them, we don't have an inclusionary ordinance, but it's gonna go very far if you provide us with something, whether it be rental units, small lot development. And so we've seen that we have a few projects in the pipeline that are actually voluntarily, they are providing for affordable housing. Talking about opportunities in the land use code, we have, for example, performance overlay zones in all of our zoning districts, either R1 for low density, R3 for medium density, and R4 for high density, which we are able to reduce the minimum lot size standards if they provide a good project similar to the one that was mentioned earlier by Chairman Pierce and by Ted and Trevilla behind Kmart. That's one project where we apply the performance overlay zone, where we allowed for smaller lots to provide housing not affordable by restrictions, but more of affordable by design with smaller lots. And then we also are working with other developers, like in San Benito Street right now, the Dakota Brothers. We have 7 units on, they are individually within like 2,000 square foot lots or so. So that's the intent that the city has been using to try to provide for affordable housing by design more than by restriction at this time. If the commissions get together with the council and the council gives direction to staff, we can certainly move that way. But at this time, yes, we've heard it loud and clear by the commission and by the city council that it is still a preference by the city of Hollister to provide for affordable housing, to encourage it.
So you do still have your growth management plan where you basically get everyone together and you're still working on your allotment process, or
that's a good question.
You're still working on that? Okay.
Actually, not at this time, Chairman Pierce. The Measure U growth management ordinance expired in 2012 per our general plan. Mm-hmm. However, we continued applying it along with the Planning Commission to we continued it because we never got direction from the city council just to eliminate it. So we continue to allocate development at 244 dwelling units per year.
244?
244, 50 of those being specifically for affordable housing. We went away with that because the city council never gave us direction to continue using those numbers. And so we went away with that in 2014. But to this day, we still have not allocated as a city over 244 units per year. That's still been the same. And then because there was no growth from 2002 because of the moratorium, the building moratorium, because of the sewer improvements that we had to do per the regional water quality control boards, there was no building then. And then from 2009 to 2012, more or less, we had the big recession, so we didn't see a lot of building. As of 2015, off the top of my head, the city of Hollister has built 468 units, including the 72 Vista Meadows Senior, including the 55 Hillview, and including the 32 Gateway Drive. This year, we see a little bit more growth. We're seeing, I think right now we're about 160 units this year so far. So we're seeing a little bit more, but we're still not at that 244 per year as was approved by Measure U. Whether the city council is going to come back to us and direct us to prepare another growth management, that's still up in the air at this time, but we certainly will take that direction. That's what the city council
seems like you've done a pretty good deal. Except for all of us are non-compliant to the state's requirement of single-family housing compared to mixed. So all of us both the cities and the county, we're building too many single-family dwelling units and not enough multiples.
That's correct.
And we've been non-compliant for a while, and we need to start addressing that too.
That's a good point, Chairman. We are, even though we don't have that as a requirement for the city of Hollister, we are letting developers know the need of multifamily housing. The big issue there is that even with multifamily housing, if we do have multifamily housing, because of the market right now, we're seeing this multifamily housing rental just so high. I mean, we've seen some of the newer rental family housing at $2,000 per month, and I mean, there's probably mortgages that are less than that. I mean, just depending on where.
Yeah.
And so that's another issue that we're trying to tackle. As planners, we are asking the developers to provide us with something. Case in point, Roberts Ranch, what we have so far, I know the county was looking at it last year, and now they have moved to the city and they're requesting pre-zoning for annexation, and they also have a tentative map. In the tentative map that we have so far, about 15% of their units, closer to not to the Cielo Vista part of it, but closer to the northern side, are going to be duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes as proposed, because of our telling them we don't have that as a requirement, but there is a need in the community, so it's going to go a long way if you propose it. And so we're starting to see that as developers come in, we're starting to see that response.
Now, your impact fees are per door, right?
That's correct.
That's the problem.
That's
See, I can sell a single-family house and make much more money than selling a duplex, and the impact fees just wipe it out. Is there been any talk at all about reducing impact fees to encourage?
That's a really good point. I haven't really been too much involved with the impact fee part of it. It was brought up, Assembly Bill 1069, that will be taking effect at the beginning of January. I wasn't aware of it until Commissioner Alvarez told me about it about a month ago. So I started looking into it. We're actually going to be discussing that in our November 22nd City Planning Commission meeting as part of the agenda. And my understanding is that they were also asking, the state is asking the cities or municipalities that they don't require certain utility connections. For example, right now, for accessory second units, the city of Hollister requires that they are all metered separately. And so, I mean, for an accessory second unit, as you indicated, they're going to have to pay their own impact fees, which right now, they can accumulate to about $40,000 or so per door. The multifamily component, which would be for accessory second units, is a little bit less. It's not a big difference, but it is a little bit less. For example, this new assembly bill talks about cities or municipalities allowing, not requiring accessory second units to be metered separately. So that could potentially eliminate the sewer impact fee, which is about around $15,000 right now. Water impact fee, which is about $2,800 or so right now. So those are things that we can look at recommending to the City Council if that's the desire of the Commission to potentially allow for that reduction per the state's recommendation of AB 1069. So those are ways that we can look at.
The way we're going to reduce any of the rents is to increase the inventory. That's just how it is.
As you mentioned, the double-edged sword.
And you're right. I mean, the rents are just they're extreme.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time. Thanks for the comments, and thank you for coming.
Sure. Thank you for having us.
Anyone want to bring anything up at all?
Nope. Okay.
No? Robert?
No. Mr.
No?
Chair?
No? How about it?
I enjoyed this tonight, and I think maybe we should try and start doing this quarterly or a couple times a year, or we should just mark it on the calendar and do it.
I actually talked to David and said it's his turn next.
I get to be Mr. Chair next time.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
So I think it would be good to rotate through the jurisdictions.
Great idea.
And so next time the city can host, we can talk about some stuff. You can heavyweight the city side of it, because we didn't get to hear enough of you guys tonight for sure. And we'll look forward to that. And then we can take it over to San Juan. If we can find a meeting hall big enough over there, or we can bring it back to here with that. There you go. There you go.
Enjoy the discussion. I really appreciate being here, and thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for coming, really, sincerely, all of you guys. I really appreciate it. It was tough. We tried this a couple of times before and run into some posting issues. So, and all those people that showed up this evening, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate you guys getting involved and just finding out maybe how things work. If you learned a little bit tonight, that's awesome. We're hoping to learn a lot from you guys, and hopefully we can continue this on every, say, 3 or 4 months and measure the things that we're not getting done, so we don't have to wait 20 years, Jason, and say, hey, that's not going on. So then you guys can all bring more things to the light, and we can work together on all this and just make a better community, sustainable living. And so with that, I'm open to an adjournment.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask that the commission adjourn to December 26th, 2016 at 6 o'clock p.m.
Day after Christmas?
Sorry?
December 26th?
December 26th, no, December 21st.
December 21st?
If you want to come on Boxing Day, it's okay with me. I'll probably be there. But December 21st, 2016 at 6 o'clock p.m.
Okay.
Regular commission
So
day.
moved, Mr. Chair.
So moved and seconded?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We
Adjourn.
will have a Christmas present, a holiday present for the San Benito County Commissioners.
I drink scotch.